Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of Burnside Council on the 18th of June 2024. Please stand if you are able for the acknowledgements. We acknowledge that the land we meet on today is the traditional land of the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important to the Kaurna people today. We also welcome any other First Nations people who may be with us tonight. On behalf of the City of Burnside, I gratefully acknowledge and pay respect to those who have sacrificed their lives for this country and its people. We also consider in our thoughts all of those who today are being affected by war, especially those in the Middle East and Ukraine. We seek guidance in our debate as we make decisions that will impact on the lives of all who reside, study, work in or visit the City of Burnside. Grant us wisdom as we serve our community. Thank you. Please be seated. For the observers in the gallery, I welcome members of the community to the gallery and ask you to observe in respectful silence as those in the chamber deliberate on matters that relate to the City of Burnside. Please turn off any mobile phones or place them on silent. Should there be a fire or any other emergency, alarm will sound and you are asked to follow instructions of council staff. And I remind you that all council meetings are live streamed through the council's website and a copy of the agenda is available by downloading it from this website. Council members are reminded to use their microphones appropriately, not to use their mobile phones and be respectful of the speaker by allowing their voice to be heard. Before I move to the agenda, I don't want to rush this at the end of the meeting tonight, but I would really like to acknowledge the passing of two City of Burnside residents. One, the former Premier of South Australia, Raymond Steele Hall, and former Senator Jennifer Cashmore. Both these leaders played an indelible role in the development of South Australia. So our sincerest sympathies go to their families. I'd also like to congratulate the two Burnside residents who were awarded OAMs for their service on the King's birthday weekend. Dr. Richard Johnson for Medicine and Hospital Administration and Dr. Pauline Morgan for the Catholic Church and Education. And finally, I just wish to recognise the passing of one of our Heritage Reference Group members, Colin Harris. His mother passed away on Sunday and she was one of the oldest residents of Burnside at the age of 102. So quite a meritorious life, who's lived in this area all of her life. So now I'll recommence and go back to the agenda and start with absences. We have two apologies, one from Councillor Zing and one from Councillor Hubel tonight. Declaration of interest, only when we get to that particular point do you need to declare that interest. Confirmation of minutes, I need a mover. I'm looking on my screen. Councillor Turnbull, you're moving.
Yes, thank you.
And seconded by Councillor Henschke. All those in favour? Against? Carried. There's no adjourned business. There are no public presentations, but there is a deputation at 10.3, and I'll ask the deputy to come forward to state his name and the suburb and then the topic, and the time will start when you begin. And just press that speak button and I'll turn mine off.
My name is Tom Wood, I live in Kensington Gardens. Say it again. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss the petition raised by residents and dog owners. I've been a Burnside resident for 30 years. My wife and I live adjacent to the Kensington Wama Reserve and have always had dogs, which we walk twice daily, mainly in the reserve. Through this, I've developed friendships with other dog owners who use the reserve. Like many other dog owners, I was surprised when, with limited consultation, Council announced the trial of a dog on lead area around the preschool. The trial has dogs on lead from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. weekdays and over a considerable area around the preschool. To understand the issue better, I watched the council meeting on YouTube at which the preschool made a presentation on this matter. The presentation was well thought out, responsible and made a good case. The main issue that I identified was that parents were understandably concerned that there might be uncontrolled dogs in the vicinity of the preschool at drop-off and pick-up times. During the presentation and subsequent discussion, the key points that I identified were timing. The preschool on at least 3 occasions reiterated that the request was for drop-off and pick-up time. Area. The preschool was not prescriptive on this. They explained that the on-lead area was to allow parents and children to walk from their normal parking areas to the preschool. The preschool has only one entrance, and this is accessed along a brick path either from the parade or from the internal parking area adjacent to the rotunda. During my infrequent exercise sessions at the exercise area near the parade, I've only ever seen parents use these 2 routes. Dog attacks. The preschool did not identify any specific incident with dog attacks on children in the preschool area. I was surprised that the motion proposed and accepted far exceeded the preschool's requests on both timing and the area for the trial. I shared my views with the regular evening group of dog walkers. This group was written up in the autumn issue of Burnside Focus. There was a widespread agreement that both the times used in the trial and the area were excessive and disproportionate. However, it was generally accepted that dogs should be on lead near the kindergarten during drop-off and pick-up times. It was decided that we would encourage participation in the community consultation and to initiate a petition on the issue. The petition, with over 180 signatories, requests that Council reduce the times and area to reflect that which was requested by the preschool. I personally collected over 100 signatures in Kensington Wama and did not find a single person who agreed with the current scope of the trial. The dog walkers in the park are very appreciative of the opportunity for dogs to run free, play and socialise. Many of the people who signed the petition expressed concern that the trial was part of a drive to limit this freedom for dogs by increasing on-lead areas. If the trial area is confirmed, it would make the aggregate area of the reserve subject to some form of on-lead restriction to be greater than half the total park area. I think the issue could be resolved to all park users' satisfaction by reducing the times to drop off and pick up on preschool days. The area only needs to be 10 metres on either side of the paved path between the parade and the internal road, rather than the current area, which is 7.5% of the total park area. I would ask that the Council would support an amendment to the trial to reflect the requests made in the petition. Thank you.
Councillor Dawes, you have a question?
I have a question, Mr. Bullock. You've seen the recommendation in 11.2, I'm supposing, on the Council agenda. Is that correct?
I did read it, but I don't particularly pick that one up, Councillor.
Well, I just wanted to check whether the wording of that is whether you agree with that. Can you?
I'm afraid I don't have the wording.
You
so
don't have the wording there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it does talk about 8 to 9 and 3 to 4 in a reduced area.
I'm sure that most of the dog walkers, including myself, would be very happy with that, Councillor.
Thank you.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Tom, for coming in. As a former resident myself, I know the effort and time that it takes to actually get together a petition with 175 signatures, so well done on that. You say that you didn't have anyone that did not support your petition. Why do you think there was not one person who did not support children getting safely into the preschool?
Thank you, Councillor. The petition has not requested that there be no dog on lead area. All it asked for was that the times and the area be reduced to reflect what was required, in our view, for children to be able to move safely between car parks, the preschool and back again.
Thank you. So everybody that you spoke to was in support of child safety, getting those children to and from preschool safely and during the hours of pick up and drop off, 8 till 9 and 3 to 4.
Exactly right.
Thank you.
Councillor Hallett.
Thank you. Hello, Tom, and thank you for coming. I know Tom through, I have a dog and walk my dog around about the same time that Tom and his family are often there. I think the only other thing, I actually support the recommendation that's in the council report, and given the question that Councillor Dawes asked you about the times, The only other variation to what to the terms of, if you like, the regulation is that it would move the pathway back to the pathway closest to the kindergarten, but the rest of the boundaries would stay the same. Are you happy with that?
Sorry, I don't quite understand, Councillor Howard.
Okay, so basically the recommendation says, is saying yes, we'll change it to half an hour either side of the drop-off and pick-up. And so I think what you're saying is you agree with that?
Certainly, yes.
Yeah. And then the second part is that you also asked for a rethink about the actual zone, the area that is going to be covered by that rule. And so what the administration are recommending, and I actually support, is that we bring the boundary back to the pathway that is closest to the kindergarten. And that then means that the people that are exercising on the equipment would have a room to, if they've got the dog with them, they wouldn't be running, putting a leg or half a body or something into the zone.
I have checked the distance between the previous, or the paved path which was there before the upgrade of the reserve, and the new unsealed paths is more than 10 metres, so any boundary that was 10 metres from the existing paved path wouldn't interfere with the new paths which provide access to the exercise area and allow people to walk in and out of the park without having to be on lead for that portion of the time.
Okay, so I think that does cover the recommendation then. Yeah. Right, that was all I wanted to ask, just to check.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in tonight. That's all that you're needed to do, and but you're very welcome to stay, but we will be dealing with the annual budget first. If you don't want to stay, you can of course go home and watch it on YouTube or on the website. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now I shall go through the reports. Oh no, we've got to receive the petition first. So 10.4, I seek a mover to receive the petition. Councillor Davey. Thank you. Moved. So, Councillor Cornish seconded. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried. Next is, I'll go through the reports and ask to see who wishes to withdraw them. The first one is Annual Business Plan. Councillor Jones. Community Consultation, Dogs on Leash. Councillor Harvey. Community Grant Funding, Councillor Davey. Burnside War Memorial Hospital, Councillor Davey. Community Consultation, Dogs on Leash, Areas for Protection of Wildlife, Councillor Davey. Eastern Health Authority Charter Review, Councillor Davey, you wish to withdraw it?
Yes, thanks. I've got a question.
Yarra Water Third Budget Review. I seek a mover. Councillor Cornish, seconded by Councillor Wilkins.
Yes.
All those in favour? Against? Carried. Finance End of the Month Report. I seek a mover. Councillor Cornish, seconded. Councillor Hallett. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Mayor's Activity Report. I seek a mover. Councillor Hallett. Seconded. Councillor Cornish. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Chief Executive Officer's Report. Councillor Davey. You wish to withdraw it?
Thank you.
Right, so she'll go back to Annual Business Plan and Budget. Councillor Jones.
Good evening, colleagues. I would like to move the officer's recommendation, which is much the same as we previously voted in favour of before we went out to community consultation. Look, I will say again what I said then. There are two logically consistent positions on this budget. One is that the community values the services that council provides and is prepared to pay for them, in which case we need to set our rate at a level that pays for those services that we know the community appreciates, and in fact would probably like more, were it not that would need rates to go up even more. The other logical position is that the community is not willing to pay for council services, and therefore we should cut our spending to match what the community is prepared to pay. And there was, at our public meeting, there were some people like that. They thought there should be a 0% rates increase and we should cut $3 million out of the budget. And if that meant closing the library, closing the swimming pool, closing the Regal Theatre, not cutting verges, they didn't care. They thought we should cut our services because they didn't want to pay for them. My belief is most of the community values our services and wants to pay for them. And we've had community consultation, to which 1,000 people responded, but 46,000 people, or 98%, didn't respond. They said, we elected you, council, to take the hard decisions based on your years of service and knowledge of the council, not just someone reading a paper, your in-depth knowledge of the council. So let's not weasel out of tough decisions tonight because we say a few people didn't want a rate increase. Most people said nothing, leave it up to you. Well, the fact is, council, we out of good intentions during COVID, we didn't increase rates. With the benefit of hindsight, that was a mistake, but the communities had the benefit of that rate cut over a number of years, and now we need to claw ourselves back to a position where we're paying for the services. Otherwise, we're just going into debt with no end of sight, and that is a recipe for disaster. So I hope you'll support the motion.
I seek a seconder. Councillor Turnbull, are you withdrawing your right to speak? Or do you wish to speak now?
I'd like to speak, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. The proposed rate rise of 40% obviously came to a shock to some residents of the City of Burnside. To the 1% of residents who expressed dismay, this 14% rate rise is a one-off to allow the Burnside Council to catch up after the previous concessions of 2 years of nil rate rises during COVID and minimal below CPI rises in the following years. Other metropolitan councils were not so concerned and compassionate to their residents during this time, hence they're in a better place financially. A 14% rate rise would bring us back to having a balanced budget. Yes, a balanced budget, not yet another deficit, with a small surplus to build on, and we will save on interest payments. If we proceed with the 14% rate rise, what will this actually cost the ratepayers? As an example, suppose your annual rates were $2,000 per annum, as mine is. A 14% increase is $280 per annum, or $5.40 a week. And another model has been 9.8% has been suggested, which is $196 per annum, or $3.76 per week. Well, the difference between these is less than $2. It's really not a lot of money. The 14% rate rise has been calculated as the price of a cup of coffee per week per adult resident. It's actually much less, and for that we get to balance the books. As a council, we just can't provide the amenities and services we all enjoy until we balance the books. With the 14% rise, we'll have a surplus, small, but a surplus to build on. Regarding council providing the amenities wanted and expected by our residents, last year we deferred all budget bids, including semi-finished products, and we undertook no new products apart from the dog park. Finishing off some of these projects and investing in some new projects would enable us to move forward. I hate that phrase, but we will be able to move forward, and importantly, retain our skilled staff. If we approve smaller rate rises, either the 9.8 or the 8.9, we would appease some residents, but we're having the same debate next year and probably the year after. So let's do it now. Let's vote for the 14%, eliminate the budget deficit, and keep City of Burnside a good place to live, with well cared for green spaces, amenities for all age groups, and a viable future. As a resident said to me, I bought here because I love the area and all it offers. If I have to pay a tad more to enjoy these facilities, I'll happily forego one coffee a week. So thank you, Rose. You said it all. Councillors, I hope you support the 14% increase. Thank you.
Now, there's a problem with Councillor Hallett's microphone, but she is next to speak, and I believe you've got a substitute mic, have you?
Yes, I have. I didn't actually press the button.
Oh, so
I will speak, but later.
oh, you don't wish to speak right now? Okay, well, now I'll go back to the list then. So that's Councillor Henschke next.
Thank you, Mayor. I cannot believe my ears here. I've just heard that we've made a mistake and that to look good, to balance the budget, to have a surplus next year, we want to claw nearly $10 million from all of our residents. That's nice. We made a mistake. We want to look good, have a surplus. Let's just get $10 million from everyone and then we'll be fine. Well, that's wrong. We're not accountants. We're not running a business here so that next year we've got a surplus. We are a council and we are here to represent the residents. We're not here to represent, not for ourselves. We had 1,000 people engaging with this budget, biggest engagement in history. We have 700 residents who said no effectively to this 14%. Imagine the whole of the car park and the Civic Centre full of people tonight. That's the 1,000 people we have. Let's not forget that. We're not accountants. With all respect, Councillor Jones, I know you're an accountant. I appreciate your analysis. I have Excel spreadsheets here from residents who have pored over all our numbers, not a stone unturned. Unbelievable. I'm not going to share it with you. All I'm going to say is that we had a very there was an email back in day one, which I go back to because it summarises those nearly 100 people that turned up at a workshop for the budget. We normally only have one person or two. We had 100 this time. And this resident tells the story nicely. Dear Mayor, Councillors and Chief Executive, you're apparently seeking ratepayer feedback on a proposed 14% increase in council rates this year. Like many who I imagine will be contacting you, I believe this to be a terrible idea. I urge council to reject this increase and instead concentrate on reductions in spending rather than simply making ratepayers pay more. I won't read out the rest because the bell's gone, but in summary, this resident says you can operate for significantly less and find savings rather than rate hikes. And they're sure that this will result in great angst amongst ratepayers. Please reject it, find cost savings, keep the increase much closer to the average of other councils at around, guess what, 6%. That's a challenge.
Thank you. Don't have anyone else on the screen. Councillor Hallett? No, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Jones, for your words of wisdom. I support the findings of Burnside Admin and the Audit and Risk Committee on 14% rate increase. This is about responsible financial management. This is a once-off. It is time to show leadership and support this long-term approach of 14% for this year and 3.75% in the next financial year. 14% is the way forward. The difference between 9.8% and 14% rate increase equates to $90, a whole $1.75 a week. You cannot even go out for dinner on $90. The very reason we are in this position is because of not raising the rates for 2 years at 0% and then an extremely cautious 6% last year. This is not sustainable in any way. We need to look at savings during the coming financial year and put some science behind this rather than just make the numbers work to get a particular rate rise number. Once the income is lost, it takes greater increases in subsequent years to gain that back. 14% was supported by councillors in a previous council meeting, and administration have worked extremely hard to stand by and support a 14% rate increase and to support our residents. It has been supported by the Audit and Risk Committee also, and to achieve projects, strategies and debt reduction, the council needs this long-term financial plan. Many residents in their response supported 14%. There has not been any huge community backlash or pushback. There has hardly been any huge backlash in the media. In fact, they've been very generous, I believe. 920 or so thousand responded out of 46,000 residents. This 14%, as I said, is a once-off. Let's look at the facts. For 24-25, a 14% rate increase gives us 512,000 surplus. For a 9.8, it gives us $1.47 million deficit. So do the maths. We can be in surplus with a once-off payment, and I'd like to thank administration for their hard work. Sometimes hard decisions have to be made with strong leadership. Thank you.
Councillor Hallett.
Thank you. I don't have a lot to say. I support the recommendations as written in the report. I really think that this is an issue that it's not about popularity, it's about doing the right thing. And we can't keep running each year with a bigger and bigger deficit. We've got an opportunity to do something about it, and regardless of, yes, it might be unpopular, we need to actually put that aside and actually just do what is best for council, and that is to stop running at a deficit. Thanks.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Worship. I won't be supporting the motion as it stands. I cannot just let go the community consultation and dismiss the community consultation and feedback that we've received. The vast majority said find a rate lower, and I'm sorry, like I just can't ignore it, like some can. And we are a representative body. The community, and I believe they're quite smart, have decided no. We're happy to pay a bit more, but pay it over a longer period of time. We're not prepared to wear the 14% hit on one go. And that was the question that we went out to the community for, was were you prepared to pay it off, rip the Band-Aid off and pay it once, or would you prefer to pay it over a longer period of time? And the feedback certainly has come that way, that they're prepared to pay it over a longer period of time. Yes, there's more interest repayments to happen on that, so we're going to be paying more over a longer period of time, but that is what the community have said that they wish to do, the majority. So I can't support this motion as it stands because of the community consultation that we have undertaken, and I believe we should listen to it. Thank you.
Councillor Dawes.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I will be listening to the majority of residents who have responded to us. And the sample size does indicate that the results are statistically, hard word to say, representative of the resident views as a whole. 931 surveys, a record far in advance of what we've had before. A couple of things I'd like to add here, which I have added before. There was a recent article about severe stress for mortgagees, and the 4 suburbs that they highlighted in that article were Dulwich, Glenside, Linden Park, Toorak Gardens. Yes, we are asset rich, but we're not necessarily cash rich, so I'll add that. The other point I keep adding every year, and it's on page 68 of our agenda items, is the valuation. And on average, in these suburbs, they will be paying more than 14%. And it ranges between 2 and 4%. I'll put Glenside to one side because that's a bit of an anomaly, but the suburbs are Erindale, Leabrook, Linden Park again, and Tusmore. And they're not the only suburbs that will be paying more than 14% on average in that suburb. So some houses in those suburbs will be paying more than that and some will be less, but on average that's what will be happening. So that's another issue for me. Look, I am appreciative of the roles that accountants play in budget preparation. But I have a social conscience as well. And my social conscience says to me that we can afford to pay these over a 3-year period instead of all doing it in 1 year. We'll get to the same result after 3 years as regards rate increases. Now, I have put in an alternate motion tonight, which the members of this council are aware of. I don't like 14%, I don't even like 9.8%. And through targeted savings, we can even get it lower than that. But that's if this motion doesn't get up tonight. But I just can't support that. I'm in full support of what Councillor Cornish just said.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very happy to support this annual business plan and budget with this rate increase proposed for 2024-2025. As we've already heard and I endorse, the rates increase is necessary to address and correct the challenges we face in developing the long-term financial plan in terms of future financial sustainability for the City of Burnside. This follows several years of timidity, and it could be described as nothing else, when Council believed it was appropriate for some years to have very low or zero rate increases, and this is from about 2020. This has now caught up with us. The injection of income proposed in this budget will ensure that City of Burnside returns to an annual operating surplus, stops the practice of using loan drawdowns to fund its annual budget, and commences annual repayment of the debt accumulated over the next 10 years. Existing and core services will continue to be delivered, with exception to the outlays for upgraded assets over 10 years, and we've had a whole review of our assets recently. New services may be added or old ones varied. Grants will be pursued, particularly for environmental and building purposes, and savings will be made wherever possible. Community feedback on the budget engagement process was inconclusive regarding the amount of rate rises supported. We had lots of suggestions about cutting the rates and cutting staff and reducing services, but no one could outline to me exactly what services we should cut out. No one. It was strongly in favour of the review of we will actually undertake a review of our current services because this is what was mentioned in our feedback and we've accepted that. Council will also introduce a new debt reduction strategy as recommended by the Audit and Risk Committee as part of the implementation of this budget and long-term financial plan. So I believe it's our responsibility to provide the leadership to restore us to financial sustainability. I hope you will support this well-considered and prepared budget, and I thank the staff for all of the work that they've put into to work through this, to ensure our financial sustainability and the services expected by our community. So that's all I have to say. I support this 14% increase. Thank you.
Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, when this all started, we got some great advice from the administration and it sounded really good. This Band-Aid approach, we will go and fix it and we can fix it quick. And then then I listened to the community and I talked to the community. And the thing that I got the most and the words that stick with me are stick to your core business. We've got all these services that we have got, and is it necessary? Can we go back to the books and have a look again? Yes, we can. I'm very interested to hear Councillor Dawes' alternate motion. He is a wise man and he has common sense. I have a cyclist, a friend who I've been riding with for close to 10 years, and recently they've been skipping out on coffees. And it hasn't been spoken about, and I just pay for a coffee. And when we talk about it, it's just a coffee a week. It's a coffee a week. It's not the cold face per se, but for me, that is the cold face. You've got a cyclist who is skipping out on their coffee. That's why you cycle, to exercise, and then it's a gas bag over a nice cup of hot coffee sitting outside all sweaty and stuff. So thank you, but I'm going to listen to this alternate motion. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkin.
Thank you, Your Worship. It'll come as no surprise to anybody that I do not support 14% rate rise for the community. There are so many people who are struggling at this particular time in our community. And I think we have to listen. I read all of the comments last evening and I felt quite depressed and sad after having read people's comments about their situation and how they feel about a 14% rate rise. I think it's unfair to expect people to add this extra cost to their already weakened fortnightly budgets. They're struggling with, like me, the increased electricity cost that came this past week. That's number one. Not only that, there's increased mortgage costs. There are families out there, 700 families are parents who support children in the Glenunga Rams Football Club. All of those parents are not wealthy. They are supportive parents in our local community. And I don't care what we've put forward, and I thank the staff for all their huge amount of time and effort. But I'm just reading this and I simply cannot support 14%. I'm happy to support a lower rate so that we can maintain the core services that we do in this council and support ratepayers over this hump in everybody's economic situation as it currently is. Thank you.
Everyone has spoken, so I shall go back to Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I'd like to preface my remarks by saying I like you, but I don't think that some of you should be running the finances of an organisation with $950 million
totally
in assets. It's entirely appropriate.
I'm sorry, no, that's an insult, and I wish
it
you
is
would withdraw
entirely appropriate for me to exercise my democratic right to freedom of speech.
You have the right to speak, but you do not have the right to insult those people who are elected by the community to serve.
And I'm saying they should not be in charge of the finances of an organisation with $950 million in assets and 180 staff. Because if you ran a company this irresponsibly, you would be going to jail. And I don't think you'd cope. Councillor Henschke, I'm sorry, appears to be detached from economic reality. You cannot...
Sorry, can you please not make personal attacks?
It's not a personal attack. It's true. I'm not. You are. Councillor Henschke has said she doesn't think we should run a surplus. Well, if we don't run a surplus, we're going into debt.
Could you just tone it down a little and be a bit more respectful, please, Councillor Jones?
Okay. If you don't run a surplus, we're going into debt. We're already $25 million in debt. How much longer can we keep going into debt? I'll tell you how long, until we go over the amount where the state government steps in, sacks us and appoints an administrator. And the first thing the administrator will do is put up rates and slash services. So it's your choice. You have to take the tough decisions. We've got ourselves into this mess. The only people who can get us out is us. And look, Councillor Jennings is saying we should stick to our core services. But what is anybody offering to cut? Councillor Dawes is not offering to cut anything. He's just saying we should go $2 million in deficit rather than 1.5 million from 9.8. He's making the situation even worse. What are you going to cut, people, if you don't put the rates up? You haven't come up with an answer. So the Mayor's complaining that I'm not showing respect to you. You don't deserve respect if you won't balance the books of this council. So I hope you'll support this motion and show some respect to the people who live in Burnside, that they're wise enough to understand that services have to be paid for.
I'll put the vote. All those in favour? Those against? I have the casting vote, and my vote will not support 14%. Everywhere I have gone, I've taken your call for division. Everywhere I have gone, people have told me how much they are hurting, and at this point in time, I cannot support 14%. The Audit Committee recommended between 8 and 14. That's a big gap. That's a big space. And our community has spoken, and 46,000 or 47,000 don't vote. Children or anyone under the age of 18 or aren't a landowner don't vote. So we're looking at 1,000 people, and of that 1,000 people, nearly 1,000, 937, 628 said they wanted 9.8 or below. So my vote is against the 14%. Division has been called. Please raise your hand if you supported the motion. Councillor Davey, Jones, Hallett, Turnbull and Harvey. Those against, Councillor Henschke, Cornish, Dawes, Jennings and Wilkins, and Mayor Monso. Thank you. Now, Councillor Dawes, you have an alternate.
Yes, I have an alternate motion, and that will come up on the screen with the assistance of administration here. And basically, most of it is the same as the previous motion, except for some targeted savings. And here you will see it now. I'm just trying to... Mayor, do you want me to read this through because of the people who could be listening?
I think you need to... Can we allow that to be read outside of the time, because people sitting at home won't know this, whereas the elected members do. So, all right, Councillor Dawes.
Right, so in red there on the screen, it's got 8.95% increase is facilitated through the removal or reduction of the following items: youth officer, 124,000, public art, 100,000, my neighbourhood budget, 45,000, basil tree pruning trial, 21,000, reconciliation action plan, 28,820, FOI software, 15,000, reduction in asset renewal of 400,000, which is borrowings, beautification of Penfold Road, Kingston Road roundabout, 25,000, strategic governance and government funding assistance, 90,000, that's more or less a lobbyist, Belliet Reserve Master Plan implementation, stage 3, removal of 50%, which equals 86,000, and Penfold Park implementation for 54,900. Now there has been some extra words associated with that in regards to what the administration believes was fair and reasonable. Do we need to go down lower, because then we've got the rate per dollar? So can we scroll up, and the rate per dollar changes to, I'm looking for red, where's the red? Is it there? I don't know where, is it there, Matt or Chris?
There it is, 6A.
6A, and the rate in the dollar is 0.170940. So, can I now speak to that, or do I need to to say anything
No,
further?
you speak now.
Okay, thank you. Now, I sent this out to councillors in advance of this meeting because I wanted councillors to be aware, you know, what we could also look as another option, because I wasn't in favour of 9.8. In actual fact, I wanted to go down to 8. And for me to go down to 8, I just could not do it because it would require a lot more consultation. So in association, in consult with administration, we've come up with these items. And you know, I will say that that is my opinion based on priorities funding. Now, if you look at the alternate models, and there was a table produced by the CEO and Chris Birch and Matt Spearman to compare the 14% with the 9.8 with the 8.9 that I've been talking about. Now, when you compare it with the 9.8, which is now the other option that's been considered, the debt is lower, the interest is lower, and of course the rates are lower. It's not as low as the 14% as Councillor Jones has indicated, but it is lower. So therefore, in my opinion, it's a better scenario for 8.9 compared to 9.8. The other point I want to make that for all three of these options, over a period of 3 years, the rate increase, a model, is the same, 21%. So what I'm saying is that we can get there, but not all in 1 year, but progressively over time, and you can only get to 8.9 if these 5 or 6 or 7 items, whatever they are, we direct that we will target those and we won't spend that money in 2024-25. Now, as well in this particular motion, we have not changed anything as regards looking at our services, because that has seemed to be the most important issue for the future. And that's really a 25-26 discussion. It requires a lot of effort from both administration and us to target more savings than what I have put forward. Now, for each of those savings, the administration has said to me, yes, there's nothing there that they would vehemently disagree with. So I think it's a scenario where I think the majority, if not all of those savings are generally agreed. And we have discussed in council some of those in previous meetings. So I'll leave it there. I'll open up for debate and answer any questions at the end.
I've got Councillor Davies' name here. Are you seconding the motion, Councillor
No,
Davies?
I have a question.
All right. I need a seconder first. Councillor Wilkins, you're willing to second?
I very much
And
am.
you'll hold off your position?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now, Councillor Davies, you can ask your...
Thank you. It's a question to the administration about how this figure, proposed budget rate rise, will affect all of the considerations that we've already been through in our both for 24-25 and the long-term financial plan.
Through Madam Mayor, I think my key concern with going to 8.95 is the impact on the latter years. Obviously, as Councillor Dawes has demonstrated, you can make this year work, but when you look at the loss of revenue and the discipline that council would have to use coming into the next year's rate rise, being 8%, I am concerned about council holding the line coming into the second year. But in the 1 year, yes, it's correct, it will work, and officers will amend our plans and our approaches to make that fit, absolutely, if that's council's wish. But my concern is the 8% in the second year, and we would have to rely heavily on council being disciplined from now until we're having this conversation in 12 months hence, to not add further pressure to that 8% going forward. Because what we don't know is what unknowns are going to present themselves from now and 12 months' time for next year's budget. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for administration. So you just said that next year's rate increase would be 8%? Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Whilst council has to resolve annually, so this evening council can't commit to to next year's rate rise. In the modelling that's been done, as was referenced by Councillor Dawes, and I'm just pulling the figures up, it's indicating that to achieve the financial outcomes we need to achieve for a multi-year repair, we would require 8% next financial year.
I have a second question, please. Would that be likely to increase further than 8%? So we're asking our residents for a further 8% next year. Would that increase potentially?
Through Madam Mayor, that's a difficult question to answer. What we would need to have regard to is the two additional pieces of work that have been requested as part of this motion. One is to review our services during the year to enable council to make some informed decisions at next year's budget. And also the other piece of work that would be required here, which is to look at the asset renewal intervention levels. Now, both of those pieces of work, if council was disciplined and could determine which services it wished to perhaps cease providing, that would provide an opportunity potentially to reduce the 8, but again, it would require a sharp focus on council to ensure that 8% went down, rather than the alternative, if council doesn't remain focused during the 12 months, that 8% could very easily rise if we're not careful.
Thank you.
Councillor Hallett.
I've got a question for administration too. If Councillor Dawes' 8.9 model is successful, would that mean that we wouldn't be able to address any additional needs or bids for services or urgent sort of projects? How would that affect the budget in regard? So we wouldn't be able to vary the budget. It would be considered locked in stone, written in stone.
Yeah. Through Madam Mayor. If we think about the magnitude of the second year's rate rise that we've required, I can't speak for the community, but I think they'll potentially already be getting worried about 8% in the second year. To not have any budgetary impacts during the year would be unusual. On two components. One, should the council wish to add something in because there's a genuine need from the community during the year, or two, unknown influences that we have no control over. But to answer your question, if this gets up, my advice to council during the year would be having to say no to everything that came to us, to hold the line so that we don't pass on a dramatically larger impact to our community. It could be done, but it would be difficult, I believe. Thank you.
Councillor Davey, do you wish to ask another question? Or
No,
do you wish to speak?
I wish to speak. Thank you, Mayor. I thank Councillor Dawes for his motion, but I have to say I oppose this. Particularly, it wasn't even mentioned in our community consultation, this low figure. And yes, and particularly in terms of knocking out the youth development officer position, which we've been working towards all year since the last budget. It was included for us to commence the position on the 1st of July this year. I think it's quite a significant position, and one that we have all thought we needed to include. I will forecast that I will move, if this fails, I will move that we as a fallback position, undertake the 9.8% rate rise, and I've prepared a motion accordingly to support that. I don't think we can go any lower than what we put to our community, and what, in terms of our sustainability, in these climes, which are very unpredictable. We're talking about a possible 8% rise next year, which we don't even know is achievable. So I think in terms of this is just way too low, and I think it really, really doesn't help our sustainability at all. I absolutely acknowledge, as I said previously, that we need to go through a purpose, and we will go through a process of reviewing our services, and I think we need to do that methodically. And we will do that methodically. I just think this is way too low, and I can't support this. Thank you. But we'll bring, if this fails, I will bring the 9.8% rise back to council. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
I've got a question, please. I noticed there's a proposal to cut the capital expenditure by $400,000 a year, I think, for 10 years. But our capital expenditure is driven by the asset management plan, which we've approved. So CEO, how will you decide which projects to cut? Because I hope they won't be in my ward.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Good question, Councillor Jones. In the modelling that we've done, we initially looked at removing $400,000 for 10 years. However, in the modelling, what's been presented to council is just removing $400,000 from this next financial year, and then reverting to our renewal models as been the result of our community consultation. So should this get up, I've spoken to the teams, and we would be looking for efficiencies, but it would mean that potentially some renewal activities wouldn't occur. We would still aim to try and keep our renewal expenditure at the 95 to 100%. I'd like to think it's achievable in this coming financial year, but as I said, we have not modelled that 400% reduction for the rest of the second to 10 years. Because at this stage, without doing the work that's being alluded to in the review of intervention levels, I don't have the data to support a long-term reduction in renewal expenditure. Thank you.
Councillor Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A question for the administration, please. The youth officer was as a result of a motion on notice of this chamber. In your email to us, do you still agree that, with your statement, that it's a role that would be nice to have, but has no great impact, and it's really not an essential role because your organisation has the capacity for meeting the needs of youth in the city, and we don't need a youth officer position per se. You can manage that within the organisation which you're in charge of. Thank you.
Through Madam Mayor, the context for that comment was in the context that Councillor Dawes asked me to prepare a model that was at 8.95. Now, if that's Council's wish, my comment stands in that we know our demographic, we have a growing demographic in the youth space, and ideally, I think we should invest in a youth officer. But taking on board the community feedback in light of Councillor Dawes' request for an alternate motion, we haven't recruited that role.
Yep.
And you would say, in the cold light of day, if council was looking to keep a cap on its operating expenditure, it is absolutely a palatable way to go. Is it the best outcome for our youth? Potentially not. But when you put the broader lens over it, in terms of our budgetary requirements, it's a palatable outcome, and I would, if it was a resultant, I suggest to council that you might reconsider the role, perhaps once we return to surplus.
Well, thank you very much.
Councillor Hallett.
I wanted to speak, if I'm allowed. Thank you. I just wanted to correct something or a misconception. Now my computer's gone. And that is that I just want to explain that actually we are a very wealthy community, and we have got in place systems and programs to assist people that are having trouble to pay their rates. It's a data, if you like. It's an index. It's called the Index of Relative Socioeconomic Disadvantage, and data and population profile people call that the CEFA index. And if you look at that, we have among almost the 3% of the highest score in that index. Burnside will, the higher your score, the more wealthy that area is. Burnside has a score of 97, Beaumont Ward 94, Rose Park Turret Gardens 93, Kensington Park 92, Kensington Gardens McGill 84, Eastwood and Glenunga 83. That compares with Australia as a whole, which is 42%, and for South Australia 32%. And Greater Adelaide is 38%. So what I'm trying to show there is we are actually a very wealthy community. And I could give you more stats. I could talk to you about how we've got very low unemployment, we've got very low people on pensions and disabilities. We've got, we do have high ownership, but we also have a higher level of people who own their house outright. So what I'm getting to is that it's about choices and priorities, and it interests me the amount of people who didn't respond to Council's survey, because it is feasible then to think, well, they obviously are leaving it up to us. And so I think it is about choices, and it's about choices and priorities for individuals, and we are not a charity. We have an obligation to not run at a loss. And that's why I think that it's, you know, when you look at the SUVs and brand new four-wheel drives taking up all the car parks, when you look at a private school numbers in the area, what we're asking for is a cup of coffee a week, and I think that that's about priorities and about choices, and that's why I'm saying I think that we should do it.
Councillor Turn.
Thank you, Mayor. Well said, Councillor Hallett. Following on from that, we are better off financially than many residents of many other councils. I struggle to believe that we're debating effectively a difference of $2.33 a week. So if we went for the 14% model, it would have been $5.74 more a week. 8.95, $3.41. $2.33 a week, and here we are debating that. This motion does not do anything for our debt. Our debt's going to be a problem if we don't sort it. I mean, we had an opportunity to sort it now, but, well, it might have to be a bit less now. And as for some of these things that are mentioned, how dare you take out the Youth Development Officer? We've been waiting for 18 months for that. I know Councillor Zing put that in when he was first in council about 18 months ago. That area of people of youth, 10 to 14, 15 to 19, are neglected in this council. They don't do playgrounds. We've got 34 of them. So they don't do that. They don't do senior citizens' strength for life. They don't get anything. So we need to have a development officer. So I would not vote for it, mainly because of that. I feel quite emotive that this has been cut out with all these other things too. And for $2.33 a week, I'm sure the Burnside residents can find that. So I won't be voting for this one. Thank you.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have another question for administration, please. What is the actual difference in the cost between 8.9% and 9.8% per week, please?
Through Madam Mayor, just to ensure I get the figures correct, I wonder if If I could refer that to Matthew Spearman of Chris Birch.
Through the Mayor, that is 51 cents per week. 51 cents per week.
Thank you. So we're quibbling about...
Sorry, are you speaking? Sorry, are you speaking now or?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify it wasn't another question. No, that's why I think somebody's jumped ship here somewhere. Councillor Davey, you're down next to ask a question, and then it's Councillor Jones to maybe speak or ask a question. But can I just let Councillor Harvey speak now? So I've written you down, and then I'll get you in the order that
So you
I've
want me
written
to
them
turn
down.
my microphone
Yes,
off?
if you wouldn't mind, please. I have you both down to ask question for you or a question or a speaking Councillor Jones. So, go. Councillor Harvey, Councillor Jones, can you turn yours off? Now you can go, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. I cannot support this motion. This is an absolute insult. We are quibbling about 51 cents a week. This is outrageous. And we're going to knock out a vital part of what was voted on in our community youth officer that Councillor Andy Zing put up, as Councillor Turnbull acknowledged. This is outrageous. We keep talking about our youth being the way forward and our future, and yet we're prepared to just knock them out and not even have them included. I find this outrageous. These are potential future councillors or mayors, and we don't give a damn about it because we're cutting them out. I cannot support this. This is outrageous.
Now, Councillor Davey, you were next to ask a question, so if I can just get the others to turn yours off for a moment, because I wrote them down on the order. So now, Councillor Davey, you've got a question to ask.
Thank you. If we're getting to the stage where we're in such dire straits, should we be starting to look at selling off our assets? And one that springs to mind is if we're starting to get this, desperate, that we can't raise funds, should we, what, for example, would we gain from selling the Dulwich Community Centre, for example?
Through the Mayor, I think 2 points to make there. We're certainly not in dire straits as a council. This is a conversation about ensuring our sustainability going forward, whether you do it in a single year or a multi-year repair. Now, the question was about what would be gained from selling the Dulwich Community Centre. I don't have that figure to hand. Having said that, my advice to council would be not to pursue that. You've just redeveloped it only 12 months ago as a community facility. I'd have to take that question on notice to give you an ultimate figure, not being a valuer. Thank you.
Now, Councillor Jones.
Sorry, this is a question again, related to my CapEx question. That capital expenditure saving is not a permanent saving, is it? If you don't fix a pothole in the road, then next year you have to come back and fix it, and it's probably got worse. So actually your rate increase next year, if you don't keep up your asset maintenance, is going to be more than you're saving this year. Is that right?
Through Madam Mayor, it's difficult to be definitive about when you would incur the expense from the short spend as proposed this year, but in broad terms you are correct that it is simply delaying expenditure that would need to occur at some point in time. If it only happens in 1 year, you would argue that it shouldn't have a major impact, but if the trend was to continue, I have certainly seen worked examples where councils are left with significant expenditure 8, 10, 15 years hence, and you've passed that cost on to a future council. That's why I'm strongly in support of the proposal here that during the next 12 months we undertake a body of work which gives us the data to support if council was to look for a multi-year impact. We can do that having the data rather than basing it on the unknown. Thank you.
Councillor Corn.
A similar sort of question in regards to the 9.8, whether or not a 400,000 on the cap X or another figure might be palatable in terms of the administration or doable in terms of the administration.
Through Madam Mayor, can I just clarify, you're asking me whether the 9.8 model would be...
In conjunction with a cap X reduction?
Certainly. So, Madam Mayor...
Sorry, and I do apologise, it is on the fly.
No, I understand the question. Council will recall my initial recommendation to Council was 9.8%. Based on that question, if Council was to look at going 9.8, I think it would be prudent to potentially withdraw, for example, the 400,000. What that would do, it would reduce your borrowings to an extent, and it would also drive a modest, but it would drive a modest reduction in the deficit that was proposed as part of that model. So from my perspective, the administration's perspective, it would certainly be a palatable outcome.
And I do presume that, sorry, follow-up question if I can, Your Worship. I do presume that you would prioritise asset renewal based on actual, like you're not going to let a pothole or a sinkhole swallow a car, for instance.
Through you, Madam Mayor, in the cold light of day, I don't think the community would notice the change into simply reducing our expenditure by 400,000
for 1 year.
For 1 year, bearing in mind our renewal expenditure is about $13 or $14 million. So in that context, it is minor. If it's contained to 1 year, I don't think there'd be a measurable impact upon our community. I would simply ask the team to look at efficiencies and any cost savings, but absolutely, of course, urgent remedial works would still be undertaken, no doubt.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Councillor Jones?
Yes, I'll speak against the motion. Thank you, Matt. I don't believe it. And I'm not doing my Victor Meldrew impression. I don't believe that if we pass this budget, then we will put rates up enough next year or the year after to restore us to the budget position we need to be in. I just don't believe that the people who won't take the hard decisions tonight will take the hard decisions next year, or especially not the year later, just before an election. I also don't believe that there will be any savings cuts, because I look at last year's budget, we passed the budget, and then 20 minutes later, we voted to spend more money that wasn't in the budget. And then pretty much every single council meeting last year and this year, since the budget, we voted to spend more money. So I simply don't believe that, one, we'll save money, and two, that we won't find new things to spend money on. And we're always spending, and we never want to put the rates up to pay for that spending. It's got to stop, people. There's got to be some time it gets into your thick skulls that we can't keep doing this. I'm sorry, Mayor, tell me off, but I'm sorry, this is madness. Councillor Wilkins wants to spend $3.5 million to resurface Glenunga Oval, which is not in the long-term financial plan. How on earth are we going to pay for that? It's just not feasible. We've got requests to redo the RSL, the Burnside Lions at Tasmore Park, all these worthy projects. I can't believe that people are going to say no to. How are we going to pay for them? we're going to go bankrupt and we're going to have the ignominy that we're going to be the first Burnside councillors thrown out of office, an administrator appointed to run the council properly. Look, colleagues, when they write the history of Burnside Council in 100 years' time, they will say the Monceau Council was weak. They refused to take the tough decisions and they left even harder decisions to be taken by the next generation, including asset sales. So please vote against this motion.
Councillor Wilkins, do you wish to speak because you
I
did
do.
second the motion?
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, we have taken the action. We have, and through Councillor Dawes, brought about some savings. We have brought about a reduction in borrowings. We have all decided and looked at in our own communities that there are things we would like to do, we would like to improve, and too bad if young people, the youth, play in mud puddles again this winter. We will do it, but we need to not go out at 14%. Totally unrealistic for a lot of families. No matter how much the CIFA index says that we are such a wealthy community throughout Burnside and all suburbs that we can all afford whatever desirables we want in this coming budget. We actually have to take some action, and I thank Councillor Dawes for looking through. I think a youth officer, every person in every department could be, one person could have some responsibility for involving youth or training or offering some workplace positions for a person to actually experience what it's like working in a council staff. Do something for youth and employment. Public art, lovely to have. But we'll let the new Burnside Village put some public art in there again. They do it well, but we won't be paying the cost. Neighbourhood budget. I think we've done enough over the past few years for nice things in our neighbourhood. Great, we've done it. Let's halt, take stock of what we've got and just re-evaluate. If we have interest savings, great. Then that's part of paying down the budget. Even I, who've been banging on about basil tree growth from trees, growth coming from the bottom, our trees are our assets. We are not looking after them properly. I wanted the trees pruned in Kenzie Road, Green Hill Road, Glenburn Road. I'll even go on in volunteer capacity to work with a team to get that done and save 21 grand. We go on. Let DIT do the Kensington Road Penfold roundabout. Why should we have to do it? Point it out to them. We can make some changes. Let's do it. Let's try it for 1 year at 8 point whatever it is, 9%, and get it done. We are progressively and sensitively going to do reduce the debt over the coming 3 years. And we'll make targeted savings each year if necessary to get to that point. But we will. Thank you. I seek your support.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkins, for everything you've said. Our role is to keep Council's resource allocation, expenditure and activities and the efficiency and effectiveness of its service delivery under review. Our residents and the CEO and his team have come back to us now and Councillor Dawes' motion captures all of this. And they come back to us tonight with an efficient and effective measures to reduce the rate rise. After tonight, the Council administrations will continue under our guidance to review and look for efficiencies and effectiveness across the business. In areas that they heard from the community on budget night in the Linden Room. So it was not just a venting session for the community. I took notes, and they're on YouTube, and we heard our CEO respond to our community that he will hold off on 3 full-time equivalents and cut labour hire. We know Norwood and Campbelltown are about our size, but we have 3 million less in payroll. They have 3 million less in payroll, for example. Ensure a rolling revaluation of assets, review of asset lives, so we don't have the shocks in depreciation. Intervention levels, we've heard tonight, we can review them. We won't be bitumising roads as much as we have been. The cost of bitumen in the world is 3 times as what it was 5 years ago. We can only do a third of a road, not a full road anymore. Bitumen, the cost of bitumen, Councillor Davey, has increased dramatically in the world. Why should we bitumise our roads at the same rate? We won't be getting the value for money. I know it's a laughing matter, but that's the world we're in. Thank you.
Councillor Corn.
Thank you, Worship. I'm sorry I just snuck in there before. I think you were going to go back to the mover. I've listened to the debates. I am concerned about this motion as it stands, and my concerns mainly revolve around the economic outlook and where CPI will be falling next year, with the RBA looking at its 2 to 3%, and whether or not an 8% rise next time round will be a little exorbitant over where indexation rates would be, and whether or not we should stick the course with our original 9.8 as the alternative, which coincidentally was the most selected in the consultation of the options. So I'm probably going to fall with Councillor Davies' follow-up option if this one gets voted down for 9.8, but I would like to actually see that $400,000 CapEx removal included in that to actually cut off a little bit of that ongoing debt. That would have some effect, so and a positive effect on ours. And as we've heard from the administration, it could be done and not noticed by the community. So I won't support this motion for fear of us staying the course, as some councillors have said, and that correlation with where CPI will be this time next year, or is anticipated to be next year, and also the fact that the community, also majority of it, voted for the 9.8%. Thank you.
I shall go back now then to Councillor Dawes.
Thank you, everybody. There's lots of emotion in the room, which shows we all care. That's what I believe. We have different views on the pace of the rate rise. That's the main difference here. But, you know, I did, I won't say enjoy the debate, but I understood the debate. And I think the first point I'd like to make is what the CEO said. And I am supporting, would you believe, what Councillor Jones keeps saying. And this is fiscal responsibility. And he was right. As soon as we approved last year's budget, within 1 hour we added something to the budget. So we need to hold the line, said the CEO. I agree with that. We need to have a sharp focus. So I agree with all those things. Now, we started talking about the second year model after 8.9. And that is, it was 8%, I think, was in there, but that's prior to the services review, which is in the recommendation, and it's prior to a re-look at the intervention levels for infrastructure upgrade and maintenance. So 8% to me is the highest. It's not going to be I don't think it's going to be 8% the following year, provided we toe the line. I agree with you there. I won't use your words or your explanation of how bad we are. Now, with 9.8%, I just want to make the point made to Councillor Cornish. If you go for 9.8%, that means our debt is $1.2 million more than the 8.9%. That's what it says in the last modelling that we got from the Council Administration. So we're going to go into more debt. So I'll be interested to see if this loses as to how we're going to bring that debt down. The other point that was made was about the development officer, and I have said in this email to everybody that, and also the CEO has said it, that we would review it once we're in surplus. It doesn't mean we're doing nothing for youth development, because as Councillor Wilkins said, everybody on council, all staff have a youth part to their role. We haven't got one totally. I'd like a sport development officer as well, but you know, I know that would never get through. The other point I want to make is that when we did this survey, this online survey, we had two choices, 14 and 9.8, right? And you could say later that you didn't like 9.8, but some people didn't fill out that survey because they didn't want 14 and didn't want 9.8. So it was a rather strange sort of survey. We should have said 14, 9.8 or other, and I think you would have found that the other would have been the highest. So, you know, of course I hope that you support it. I can sense I haven't got the numbers, but I'll be also interested to see how Councillor Davies' motion reduces the debt further. Thank you.
I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is lost. Division's been called. Those who voted in favour, please raise your hands. That's Councillor Dawes, Henschke, Wilkins and Jennings. And those against, Councillor Davey, Jones, Hallett, Turnbull, Harvey and Cornish. Councillor Davey, you have an alternative.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, the staff, if this could come up on. Thank you. It was 4-6. Now, I'll move this motion and read it out. I have not sent it around because it's been based on the recommendations that are in our budget papers, and all of the issues that have been raised in that are commensurate with 9.8. So I think adoption of this model, and I'll read it through, sorry, because there are some issues that haven't been publicly addressed, but are ones that I thought gave some thought to in terms of being able to be held off for a year. So further to the 9.8% rate increase, cease the following services or projects to contribute towards achieving an operating surplus. Focus magazine, approximately $73,000. Communications budget, $25,000. Garage sale trail, $3,300. Community grants, $45,000. Community sponsorship, $17,500. Quick response grants, $20,000. Your neighbourhood budget, $39,000. Bus shelter renewal and replacement for 24-25, $47,000. And playground renewals, replacement for 24-25, $190,000. And the reduction in asset renewal capital expenditure for 2024, $400,000 in borrowings. So adoption of this model will still result in an operating deficit rather than the hoped-for surplus. Any lower income from rates will result in an even bigger deficit. It will mean Council will not achieve its key financial indicators for this budget cycle, and this will need to be achieved in 25-26, hopefully, with a higher forecast rate, as we've discussed. We've had feedback from our community, and that's been discussed tonight, with support for a range of options from a 14% rise to a 9.8% rate rise, as well as for none. So it's our challenge to find a balance between what residents expect Council to deliver and what is appropriate and affordable for Council to provide with the revenue available. So that's a huge challenge. On page 177, our rating history, I'm just going over what our rating history has been over the last 10 years, showing we've had average rate increases consistently below the local government average for the past 3 financial years. So this will try to start to ameliorate that. These are issues that I've identified that can be, I believe, deferred for 12 months and will hopefully assist us in actually achieving our objectives for this budget, for this 24-25 financial year. So I hope you'll support this, and we can make a decision tonight, hopefully. Thank you.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Harvey, do you wish to speak now?
No, I reserve my right, thank you.
Might take a little time to digest it, but is there anyone who wishes to speak? Councillor Dawes.
Yes, just a question with the 4D, which it says community grants 45,000. Does that affect our agenda item 11.3 at all, where we've already made a recommendation?
Through Madam Mayor, should this motion be successful, that would mean that Council would not be required to consider the report that's before you this evening, because effectively the funding no longer exists.
We've got a lot to take on board. Are there any other people who've got questions? Councillor Jennings.
Could the CEO please repeat what he just said then?
Certainly. So, through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Dawes asked the question that if the community grants was removed from the budget as per this proposal, would Council be able to consider the report that's coming later in the agenda, which deals with the specifics of the community grants for next year? So the answer is that no, Council wouldn't be able to consider those in line with the fact that you would no longer have the funding allocation.
Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a question. The Focus magazine, isn't it, I think we were quoted 26,000 each quarter? Is that the right figure? Correct figure?
Through Madam Mayor, I'll just get some clarification from Mr Spearman.
Through the Mayor, just doing the quick maths of taking that 73,000 figure and dividing it by each quarter, it's 18,250.
Councillor Hallett.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a question. Rather than identifying potential services or projects on the fly, would it be possible, would the mover consider that we set a target, an amount that has to be found, and then we work that out in the workshop as to what we cut?
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, I was distracted answering another question. Could you please repeat the question?
Sorry.
Thank you. My question was, would it be acceptable to the mover, and can we actually, rather than identifying potential services to cut services or projects, could we agree to identify a target amount rather than a specific services, and then we'd workshop the services? But we would have agreed on an amount that we had to find.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I wouldn't advise that approach, only in light of the fact that if ultimately Council still can't agree on the projects, you end up with a potential budget saving that no one knows how we're going to achieve it. I would advise council to either be disciplined this evening and decide what the projects are, or if you believe that you're unable to come to a position this evening, we would be required to meet fairly quickly and hold a special meeting to get this budget adopted before the end of the financial year. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Yes, that was going to be my question. What happens if we don't pass this motion? Do we wait until we've got Councillors Hubel and Zing back? See if they can break the deadlock, so to speak.
Through Madam Mayor, if we don't adopt the budget this evening, we obviously have a statutory deadline we need to meet. We would get together either at a workshop and trying to get some consensus that I can put a recommendation before council, but ultimately this council needs to adopt a budget ideally before the end of June, so that once we trip over 1 July, the administration, they've had an adopted budget which they can operate from. Thank you.
Councillor Davey, you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes. Just following up from that, can you comment, and I appreciate I didn't have a chance to circulate this with the exact ideas for savings, but they're based on nice to have aspects. Are there any implications for the community, if you could highlight any dire, if these projects are delayed for 12 months?
Sorry, through Madam Mayor, you're asking me to comment what the impact on the community would be of these proposals. The Focus magazine, my understanding is from our community satisfaction surveys that it is a valued outlet of our communication, so potentially council may receive some negative feedback from a portion of our community. Communications budget, that would not have a detrimental impact. The word will go on. I think when you're looking at the other community grants, there may be portions of the community that would like to access those, so there's potential negative there. The quick response grants, in my experience, they are a very valuable tool for when we are working with community groups where they're looking for amounts up to $500, and we are able to provide quick wins for the community and / council. The other components that are there, I think, could go through without terrible amount of detriment. If I might add a further comment, Madam Mayor, I think there may be, and I'm coming back to Councillor Hallett's question, there may be an alternate school of thought. If the elected group can't agree on a set of targeted projects to pull out, you could potentially adopt a 9.8% budget, as was proposed by the administration originally, on the understanding that during the year or early in the year, you may look to pull out projects and save funding through the year. That may be a palatable approach. Just putting that out for consideration, Madam Mayor.
I have a blank screen. Anyone? Thank you, Councillor Court.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, unfortunately, I did not have an opportunity to see Councillor Davies' motion before it appeared on the screen. Certainly, items D through F are of a little bit of a concern to me, primarily given the number of service clubs we have in the city of Burnside that provide a huge amount of support to our community through different programs and initiatives that they run, and removing that funding from them for a year might actually prevent a huge amount of those sort of activities in the community from being run, let alone the fact that we've actually just opened up applications, we've gone through the assessment process for them, and now we're going to write to them and say, I'm sorry, we've just pulled all the funding, so we can't give you a cent. I think that's a little rude, so late in the process after we've actually started the process for it. So those certainly do concern me in this motion. And obviously the Focus magazine does concern me as well. It is our only communication tool at the moment with the community. You know, we don't have the messenger anymore. We used to be able to, you know, we paid money all the time, and we had that bar strip of everything that's going on in Burnside in that. We no longer have that anymore to get that information out, and the Focus magazine's the only way. I know we've got some call from the community to go completely digital, and I thank the administration for trying to do that. I saw the postcards in the last Focus magazine encouraging everyone to sign up to engage.burnside, which is a great way to get that information out. But there is still going to be a lot in our community that do not get that or don't engage electronically with us. So at this time, I don't think the tipping point's right now that we can get rid of printed material to our community. So unfortunately, in this instance, I can't support completely this. I don't mind the CEO's alternative of potentially you know, doing the 9.8, and then we come to, you know, Q1 review and we actually start removing a few. I certainly think that the reduction asset renewal capital expenditure, given it's a doable and given the effect that would have on our debt and on our borrowings on that long term, so it will be the thing that Councillor Dawes' 8.95 and the debt reduction and those reduced amounts, it will have the big effect there. And that's probably one area that I think we can include in this, and that's where I currently stand at the moment. So thanks for hearing me out.
Councillor Dawes.
Well, I'll tell you what I am prepared to do, if we can do it, because I see that my motion, the main concern I saw was the June Development Officer. That's what I saw before, which means that if we put that back in, so now above 8.9, so it might be 9.1 or 9.2, I'll get Chris to tell me what that is. If this fails, can I put that as the next motion or not? The question I have.
Through Madam Mayor, the short answer is no. And the reason I say that is we've prepared a number of scenarios for this evening, and each of those have required Chris Birch and his team to calculate the rates in the dollar. So we have the calculations for 14%, 9.8 and 8.95. Now, as long as that headline rate stays as those numbers, we're able to prepare the recommendation for this evening. Anything else would require us to go away and run the numbers, and we would require a special council meeting to come back if that was the wish of council to go that way. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Jones.
Look, I'll speak to the motion. This is why we can't cut spending, because we can never agree on what we're actually going to cut. And to be honest, none of this is enough anyway. We need to cut millions of dollars in spending. We would need to make 20 staff redundant. If you want to save $2 million, we've got 180 staff. The staff cost is $22 million. You need to make 20 staff redundant. So let's not be tinkering around the edges here. This is serious life-changing cuts that you have to make if you want to get back to core services, or if you want to cut the spending so you don't have to put rates up. So look, it's a big, big problem, and I just think that people need to face up to reality.
Councillor Dawes, you got another question?
Another question to the CEO. If, again going back to my original one, and I say further savings of 124,000 to be decided by council, can I move that motion?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I would advise against it only on these grounds. You would end up adopting a position without council still having decided whether they're going to remove that role. So the outcome of that will be unknown. It could go either way based on when council would meet again to reconsider that. My firm recommend to council is to be disciplined and look at adopting a budget tonight. If you don't think you can do that, we'll need to get together at another session, have some out-of-session conversation to come up with a position. Following on from those thoughts, if you can't agree on this item that's before you, my suggestion to you is that you adopt the 9.8, potentially include the 400 if that's an uncontentious item. If it's contentious, don't consider it. Adopt the 9.8 and then during the year have the conversations on what you might wish to take out. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Can I follow that up and say what would the procedure then be? Is the procedure to vote this down and put up an alternative as 9.8? I just need to know, and I think we all need to be guided in as to what the process might be.
Madam Mayor, I don't wish to get in the road of the debate. This is
an if.
This is a decision for the chamber. If the motion that was before you was unsuccessful,
So we have to vote this down or up first.
yeah, it's before you. You have to deal with it, and that will either be successful or unsuccessful. If it's unsuccessful, then it would need someone from the floor to move a further motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Davey?
I just have a question. We've already had two amendments to the motion. Are we at the maximum for that tonight?
No, through Madam Mayor, we haven't had amendments. We're just considering motion.
No, sorry, to the whole budget, 11.1 item.
No, when we talk about a limit, sorry, through Madam Mayor, when we talk about a limit on amendments, that's a limit on amendments to particular motions that are before you. So at this point in time, we're not constrained. We haven't exceeded that limit in this context of amendments. If a motion fails, council is at its will to move any subsequent motion to achieve the result.
As many times as we like.
Correct.
Could I just ask if, just to clarify, through you, Madam Mayor, the savings that I have proposed from A to JI are approximately $460,000. Is that what you're talking about needs to be then debated about in terms of saving to accommodate the 9.8% rate rise?
I'm terribly sorry, Madam Mayor. I missed the first part of your question, Councillor Davey.
So the savings that I have put in, savings in services, from A to I, totals approximately $460,000. So that's you're saying we could debate that, if we pass the motion tonight, we could debate that amount in terms of what services we determine for the next year.
Through you, Madam Mayor, if council was of a mind that this evening it didn't want to lock in the fact that they were removed from the budget, council is obviously at liberty at any time during the year. Ideally, you would have the debate perhaps prior to the first budget review so that the administration don't start implementing some of these programs. But yes, council would be at liberty to review the list that's before you, or any list they choose, should council choose not to make that decision this evening.
And one final question, if I may. When's the first budget review, please? If you can remind us.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll just get Mr. Spearman just to give me a date and that will come to us.
Through the Mayor, it's typically around October, November.
Well, we need to move forward with this particular motion that's on the table. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to, for or against this motion as it is presented to us? Because we have to deal with this before we can move to any, if we are to move to anything else. Councillor Wilkin.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't support this one because I think the Focus magazine is a critical point of correspondence with all of our ratepayers. Garage sale trail, that can go. Community, quick response, perhaps no. Your neighbourhood budget, maybe. Bus shelter renewal, maybe. Playgrounds, no, we don't need any more at the moment, thank you. 190 saved. And, well, reduction of 400k in borrowings, which is exactly what we moved in the 8.5 motion, 8.95 motion. So, what a pity we didn't talk about this prior to. That's my response. I really don't support this. We need to review, but I don't support this in total.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? All right, I shall go back to Councillor Davey then.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you all for your input and considerations. We've reached the stage where we've reached one of the last of our options, I believe. We have some projects and services that we would like to provide, many of them in fact, and some that we need to provide, and some that are nice to provide but we don't really need them. I accept that the Focus magazine is a principal communications tool. I think we could review this inclusion perhaps in our October-November budget review, but I think we could give some intent to this, to making it electronic and review how much we actually print in terms of paper printing. We can certainly make savings in the communications budget, and I think the garage sale trail is reasonable to dismiss for this year. The grants, I think it would be absolutely perfectly reasonable to write to all the applicants and to say we're reviewing our budget constraints, we're over budget, and write to them all and to defer those. And the others, I think, are reasonable that we can defer, the bus shelters and the playgrounds. So I don't see that this is a problem in terms of making a decision and then fine-tuning it as we get to the first budget review in October, November, or workshopping it before that. I'm very happy to do that. But I think our staff need us to make a decision tonight, and I think it's only fair that we do. We can't go below 9.8. I mean, what else are we going to do? So hopefully you'll support this and we can make a decision, give our staff some certainty, and then tweak it from here. I'd be more than happy with that. So hopefully you'll support that. Thank you.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? All right. It's I can cast a vote and I cannot support this motion as it stands. Sorry, I cannot support this motion as it stands. Division's been called, so those who raise your hands, please, if you voted in favour of the motion. Councillor Harvey, Turnbull, Hallett, Jones and Davey. Against, Councillors Jennings, Wilkins, Henschke, Cornish and Dawes, and the Mayor. Thank you. Now I'm looking for someone to have, Councillor Cornish, you're going to put a motion up for the 9.8.
I will for the 9.8, exactly the same as Councillor Davies, apart from remove A to I, and we'll have J. We'll be getting the report back on the services and the cost of those services. We can have a debate about it. The 9.8 and all of the projects were originally proposed by the administration to go out to community consultation. We are not a corporation like a company, a commercial corporation. We are a government. We can wear deficits, a few of them, The City of Onkaparinga had many deficits in a row, and they seem to be functioning perfectly well. I don't think we're completely and utterly in dire straits, and we can wear a few deficits. And in fact, I remember when I joined this council in 2010, we were running deficits of about $2.2 to $2.5 million a year, which we were able to, over time, whittle down, work our way through, and get ourselves back into a surplus, and then we continued again. It's a cyclical thing with councils and governments. You look at federal government, you look at state governments, there's surpluses, there's deficits. It happens because we're supposed to iron out what happens to our community. So I hope you do support this motion. We can look at cutting costs after we've got that feedback that the administration's going to do on how much all the discretionary services are. So please support this motion.
Councillor Henschke, you're seconding?
Yes, I'll second.
Do you wish to speak?
Yep, get on with it. Yep, so thank you, Councillor Cornish, and thank you all. Look, the modelling, the graph that we received this week shows a pretty picture. We've got, we'll be breaking even in 26, 27 pretty much. The only difference between the 9.8 and the 8.9 is pretty much the, you know, at 9.8 just goes shoom down to 26, 27, and the 8.9, whatever, goes like that, and then down a bit, and then it hits 26.7. So we'll end up in the same spot. And the administration, you know, have got efficiencies and effectiveness on their minds. They've offered, look, instead of buying software, you know, just save $15,000 here, for example, on, you know, just do another spreadsheet, you know. And look, we've got the big raft from Councillor Dawes, the list there. We've got a suggested list from Councillor Davey. I'm sure there's more lists that can be prepared. And I think it's great that we've had such a community engagement in this process. I'm actually really grateful that we did go out to 14% consultation, because we had so much engagement and so much, we learned so much from the community about what they want and don't want. And that meeting was excellent. We had so much engagement. So that's great, community civic engagement, and that's what local government's all about. So thank you all. Please support this, and we'll have a budget to work with.
Councillor Davey.
I just had a question. Perhaps Councillor Cornish can address this in his summing up. What did he mean by what was included in the public consultation? Does he mean the services that were included in the amount for the 9.8% rise, he said? Sorry, I'm just a bit confused about what that would include.
Through Madam Mayor, that was certainly my understanding, but I'm sure Councillor Cornish can clarify in his summing up.
Councillor Jones.
Look, I can't support this motion. It's even worse than Councillor Dawes' motion. It's saying we won't put rates up enough, but we won't cut spending at all, other than some vague offers that we'll talk about finding savings, which I can promise you now we won't, because everyone will protect their pet projects, and they'll say, oh no, the sky will fall down if we don't have a youth officer. Sky will fall down if we don't have the, what's it called, the magazine. The sky will fall down if you don't have community grants, which is a one-off program where we give $500 to vaguely worthy causes. I mean, you couldn't make it up. I can't support this. This is just yet again a total failure to take a decision. It's weak, it's spineless, it's gutless. I'm voting against it.
Councillor Dawes.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Another question here, and this might be too difficult for Matt and Chris. Now, under the modelling that we received on Monday, it said that the outstanding debt for the 9.8% model was $29.9 million. Now, with Councillor Cornish's motion, where he's saying $400,000 asset reduction, can someone give me what that will go down to? I know it's over 5 years. Can you give me a ballpark figure? Because then that will determine whether I vote for it or against it.
Through Madam Mayor, Chris Birch can give us a ballpark figure, and I just want to caveat around it in fairness to Chris doing this on the fly. Thank you.
Yeah, through the Mayor, yes, it would be, this is calculating off the top of my head, it would be about $29.5 million just removing the 400,000. Obviously, there would be a bit of saving with interest that would need to be calculated on top of that.
A follow-up question. So that means that under the 8.9 alternate model, it was 28.7. So it would still be higher than the 8.9% model. Is that a correct statement?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it is a correct statement that it would be slightly higher under this proposal, but I can't clarify the magnitude at this point in time.
Is there anyone else wishes to speak? All right, go back to you, Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Worship. Trying for the compromise here, and Councillor Jones, you're right, we can't make a decision on what services actually to cut in a council meeting, and it's a very hard thing to do, and especially when we're trying to do it on the fly. So I have offered this. We are getting a lot more information from the staff about those services and how much they actually cost. I think we should actually look at that, and I think we should actually do it in consultation with the community to find out what services they're actually okay for us to completely cut. And I actually think it should be a regular thing that we actually do with the community, because there are services that we may be retaining for many, many generations that we actually don't need to do any longer, and the community don't realise that we are doing it. So, look, I hope you support the motion, and I put it to the floor.
Those in favour? Those against? Right, we're back to where we started. Motion is lost. So, all right. Division's been called, so those in favour, so those who voted in favour, please raise your hands. Councillor Henschke, Councillor Cornish, Councillor Wilkins and Councillor Jennings. Those against, Councillors Harvey, Turnbull, Dawes, Hallett, Jones and Davey. Have you changed your mind, Councillor Wilkins? Sorry? Have you changed your mind? You're supposed to have your hand still up. Assuming you haven't changed your mind. All right. So we've got them all. We've got the 10 names. Thank you. No, I don't think we should. I don't think we should have a break. I think it's. We've had the hospital people here for 2 hours, and I think we need to deal with that item before we have a break. But I just need to know where we go with this.
Madam Mayor, Council's got two options before it. Just move on, and we'll have to call a special meeting to try and get a budget. Or, if there is a alternate motion floating around the chamber, someone can move it and see where that falls. Thank you.
Councillor Cornish, are you moving something? Oh, right.
I was going to offer that if we did do this again, perhaps we'd go into an informal session and actually debate around the chamber what should be removed first, without going through the formality of a council.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. For the sake of expediency for this evening, we do have an agenda to get through. If the council is of the view that it can't adopt, for example, the 9.8 model that was initially proposed in its entirety with no changes, and you are seeking to go through line by projects and have a debate on what's in and out, I would encourage you to hold a special meeting rather than do it this evening.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam.
I tend to agree, and hopefully then we have two other members here. But the other issue is that, you know, I think it's we've kind of got round and round circles tonight, and I think we need to focus on getting through some of the other things that have to be done tonight. And so I am going to move to the agenda item 11.4, which is the Burnside Warmore Hospital. And apologies to the hospital people who've been here for the whole debate, and we need to deal with this first. So, Councillor Hallett, are you moving something?
I was, but...
You're not going to now. Councillor Davey, are you moving?
Thank you. Yes, I'm moving this. Thank you. I pulled it, remember? Thank you. I'll move this motion with a very slight amendment to
Page 360.
Page 360. The recommendation is that Council grants the Section 2221 authorisation for alteration of Moore Street to enable construction of an air bridge as per the concept plans provided at attachment 2 of this report, subject to the Burnside War Memorial Hospital, and I'm just changing A, undertaking whole of Burnside community consultation. So it's just a very slight amendment to A.
Councillor Davey, it is slight, but it's also costly, or more costly, isn't it?
I'll give my reasons.
Okay, I'm sure you will.
Undertaking whole of Burnside community consultation, and then delete as set out in this report. So delete as set out in this report. So undertaking community consultation, thank you. And receiving development approval for the structure, ensuring the structure is certified by an appropriately qualified engineer as being constructed to appropriate standards, entering into a Section 221 authorisation on terms acceptable to Council, and agreeing to market rent of $3,900 per annum, subject to annual rent reviews, in addition to meeting costs associated with the development of the air bridge and Council's legal and valuation advice. Our wonderful Burnside Hospital is wanting to expand and review its location, well, how it operates within the location that it's got. We've got a very detailed report, and they've done a whole lot of assessment work. The only reason that I have moved that slight amendment is that I think the air bridge is fine, the design of it looks fine, the concept is not alien to us all. But I think in terms of ownership and making sure that it is acceptable, that the whole community be given an opportunity, the whole of the Burnside community be given an opportunity to have a say. So just so that there's ownership, it's going to be a very long project, we don't want any controversy, and I just think that would be the best way to go about it, to make sure that right from the start we involve the whole community and give them an opportunity to have a say. So it's a project that I don't have any problems with. It will expand the use and capacity of the hospital, and I hope you'll support this motion. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Wilkins.
I'm very happy to support this concept of the air bridge going between two sections of the Burnside War Memorial Hospital. No problem at all about this. But I think Councillor Davey has a good point that we need to make sure the whole of the Burnside community understands what is going ahead at this particular point in time, and I think it's only courtesy that we do give them the opportunity. So I do support it, and thank you.
Councillor Hallett.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I must admit my hard drive is a bit full, and I don't know how much more I can fit in, but I recall when I was reading the report that the hospital will pay for the community consultation. If we extend it to, as Councillor Davey is recommending, undertake a whole of Burnside Council, does that have any impact on that?
Through Madam Mayor, I'm happy to work with the hospital to look at a cost-effective way of achieving the outcome.
Councillor Jones.
Well, I was going to propose a variation with cost in mind, that we vary it to be a whole of Burnside Council electronic community consultation, if you'd accept that. So no hand deliveries, no mail outs, just if you're on our email list you get consulted, and if you don't, bad luck. Let's save some money.
Through you, Madam Mayor, if Council is comfortable, I firmly believe that I can work with the Burnside Hospital to work through what's been proposed so that it doesn't provide an unnecessary cost impost on the hospital.
So you're happy with it as it is?
I'm comfortable to work with what's been proposed.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And I'm
You don't
also,
need a variation, that's all.
yeah, if council is comfortable, I'm happy to work with the hospital to work through how we do that without a huge cost impost.
Councillor Cornish?
Could I offer maybe a variation or an amendment? I am a little concerned removing some sections of Part A of the motion. Could it possibly, like, undertaking a whole of Burnside Council community consultation, including as set out in this report? I don't want this to replace face-to-face with local neighbours, which the report sets out face-to-face, but this motion now says you're not going to do face-to-face. And I think face-to-face for the local residents that are going to have to be nearby it. So could we include including as set out in this report?
Thank you. Now, Councillor Henschke?
Yes, and thank you, Councillor Cornish. I totally agree with what you've said. That is so critical because we, as councillors, I don't know about Councillor Cornish, but I have not engaged with the community about this proposal at all. So I don't want it to be a surprise. And I presume then the way the consultation, the type of consultation that's occurring is quite clear that it is subject to development approval, etc., as set out in this recommendation.
Councillor Jennings?
I was going to talk, but Councillor Henschke has just pretty much covered what I was going to say, so let's move on.
Right, I have no one on the screen, so I'm happy to go back to Councillor Davey.
I'm happy with those variations and hope that everyone will support it. Thank you.
Those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried. Right. Now I'm saying we should have a break for 10 minutes,
so move.
9:21 we start again.
I so move.
All right, seconded. All those in favour? Not everybody's responded, but I think I've got enough hands.
I do fancy the Cherrybanks. And I'd like to take that to an annual, I'd like to take that to the annual picnic. And those hats wouldn't be cheap. Where are all the women? Well, some of them. Yeah, they're in the bus. They're singing the bus up.
We take the two items from both lists.
The kids loved it. Yeah, there was official photos and then there were my photos. It really was. My bike exploded when I was trying to pull. True story. Yeah. Tony's plan B. Might be a charity. Yes.
I'm going to restart the meeting, and it's Councillor Harvey, Community Consultation, Dog on Leash, Kensington Park Preschool. 11.2, page 317.
Thank you, Mayor. As mentioned earlier, 175 residents signed a petition wanting to see children get to and from school safely from 8 till 9 in the morning and 3 till 4 in the afternoon. I met with the Kensington Gardens Reserve preschool director and staff member recently. They told me they supported dogs on leads from 8 till 9 and 3 to 4, Monday to Thursday. They don't have children in the preschool on Fridays, and so they support the new area which is proposed for getting the children to and from preschool safely on that pathway right adjacent to the kindy. Both the principal and staff member told me that they own dogs themselves and they love them. They also said the children love to see dogs through the fence, and in particular there is one that they have nicknamed Harry McClary because he looks exactly like Harry McClary. There is no one who is not supporting children's safety. The children enter a gate that is locked behind them. They then enter the building through the front door, which is locked till 3:30. The director and staff member also expressed dog owners generally behave very responsibly. We heard from Tom Bullock that not one person refused to sign his petition with 175 signatures. A huge response and time and effort was put into this. There have been no reported dogs attacking children in this area. The children will be kept safe, getting to and from the preschool via the pathway. Dogs on leads from 8 till 9 and 3 till 4, and the signs will reflect these hours. The community supports this, the kindergarten supports this, in keeping our children safe, getting them to and from preschool safely. I hope you will support this motion. Thank you.
Seek a seconder. Councillor Hallett, do you wish to speak?
No.
Anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. This seems to be a very good outcome in terms of what we had been sort of led to believe was a big problem. It seems that common sense has prevailed, and I'm pleased with that both the childcare centre and the local community now seem to be happy with what's been suggested. I just have one query that I'm not clear about, and that is the exact area, the area of the trial. Because on page 320 we've got a red area, and then there's a yellow area attached to it, and a blue path in the middle. And I'm not sure if someone could clarify with me what that is, and is that the area that we're talking about? That would be great.
Mr. Cant, could I ask you to... sorry, Mr. Cooper, is it?
Thank you. Through the Mayor, I can confirm that map 2, which is the one you're referring to, Councillor Davey, is the red area, which is the one that the dog on a leash trial will be amended to. So the yellow line shows where it is currently, and the movement westwards to the red line there is the new position. So it's just the red area.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Otherwise, I'm quite happy to go back to Councillor Harvey. If you have anything else to say, otherwise I'll put the motion. Right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, against, motion's carried. Now we need to move to the 11.5. We can't do the community grant funding because there are no funds available as yet. So we will need to look at community consultation. I think that's Councillor Davey.
I was going to suggest that we address that by saying we defer funding till the budget's decided?
I think
that not
I
be-
was told by by the CEO not to continue with that one tonight.
So it'll be withdrawn, or?
We just leave it hanging, and we probably might not get round to it anyway if we get to the very end if we need to. So I'd like to move to 11.5, which is you, Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Yes, reluctantly I support the recommendation, the staff recommendation for this. I have some significant concerns about the increasing dogs on leash areas in the city of Burnside, as has been told to me as a dog owner who walks in a lot of the parks in Burnside. So I can understand some of the areas of concern. I think we need a lot more education of our community. We've got a big community that walks their dogs and loves them. We've got some people who are annoyed by them, although I think they're a minority. The majority of dog owners are incredibly responsible and caring, and 99% of them pick up after their dogs, don't have them annoying people, don't allow them to annoy people. But there is a percentage that does let their dogs jump into the wetlands and frighten the wildlife and things. The other concern I have is that there is no action taken at all. There's no mention in here, but there's lots in the feedback about the damage that cats do in the community and how we need to protect our wildlife from cats, and we're not doing a thing about it. I know we've sent letters to the Minister. I appreciate it's a vexed area for councils to address, and I would like to see us make a concerted effort to liaise more with the Minister and send some more correspondence to say we'd like to be involved in developing a proactive cat management strategy. Which I think will save money in the long run and save our wildlife, which is what the intent of this is. Dogs are getting blamed for it. There's hardly any evidence of dog attacks, but there have been one or two. But I'd like to see us address the issue of cat management much more. Thanks.
Seconder, please. Councillor Cornish.
Happy to second. Just out of interest, I actually don't mind changing a sign to having it dogs and cats on leads. Is that possible? Would that actually be possible to change the sign to have dogs and cats on lead area? I know we don't have actually like a bylaw to enforce it, but I don't actually mind the sign. Like, I completely agree, protecting biodiversity is, and these are for areas of high biodiversity areas, and as the information that Councillor Hallett circulated, any animal that doesn't belong there that walks through will actually have an effect on local fauna and flora, basically. So I'm happy for both to be, and I know we don't have anything, but just change the sign. Is that something we could do? Sorry.
Through Madam Mayor, just refer that to Mr. Cant.
Through your worship, you are correct that there is no bylaw that covers that, so it can't be enforced. However, if that's the will of council, we can certainly put the signage on there to say cats and dogs on leash in this area.
I'm certainly happy to offer that variation to the mover if they wish to accept it.
Yes, absolutely.
As a seconder, I'm happy to accept it.
Yeah, fine. I've seen cats in their carry bags, the cat packs, so that counts. Okay, Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, as a morning runner, not all of the council is aware several weeks ago, while I was on my Wednesday morning run with my friend Lorraine, I was in a dog off leash area and I had a dog come up and bite me on my backside, which required me to then get a tetanus shot, which then made me had to report it to the Adelaide City Council, which then wore me down a little bit because this gentleman just had a spray bottle, and that's what he felt was the necessary effective control of his dog. If I was a 3-year-old child and the same dog had come up and nipped the child, that child would have been required to have gone to hospital, and who knows what. Now, I believe the Adelaide City Council is seeking to find this gentleman because there has been another attack in Pakthakanthe, and there is now a sign up saying, please have your dogs on leashes, even though it's not enforced.
In Victoria Park?
Victoria Park.
Right.
So there's no problems with dogs. It's the owners. That's what. It's 99.5% of dogs are pretty much good dogs, but it's a small percentage that ruin it for everyone. A little bit like human beings. So I support. Well, I support this dog on leash area to protect wildlife, and so be it. If we have to do it for kitty cats too, let's do it. Let's be at the vanguard of Australian native animal protection. Thank you.
Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Mayor. You're probably waiting for someone to say, this is the thin edge of the wedge. I think. I note that dogs are better behaved than many humans, especially in our parks. The Burnside dogs, they don't often go astray. But my concern is that all reserves and parks will be designated as dogs on leads because of the wildlife and flora. You can argue that there's wildlife and flora in all of them, because Heatherbanks Heatherbanks being chosen. It's got 2 paths and some rare orchids and a resident brown snake. But if you want to keep your dog on a lead, that's good. So, that's pretty, to me, that's not a major one. Whereas some of our ones where the dogs run free, I'm worried for them, that they will be put on the next list. Thank you.
Councillor Hallett.
Thank you. I've just got a comment, and that's that I have seen some odd things over in Kensington Mama. I've seen a rabbit on a lead, and I've seen a cat on a lead. So, yeah, it's... but I do support that we need to pay attention to cats. And cats do more damage to wildlife. They have more kill rates of particular types of animals like birds and lizards. But we also have, I've been in the park when a dog has savaged a possum and killed it, and I have seen the remains of dead koalas in our park. And we know about some of the recent attacks. I don't necessarily think that the dogs are bad dogs or an out-of-control dog. It's just instinctual that if they see something wild on the ground, you don't know whether your dog's going to just chase it and smell it or whether your dog's actually going to attack. So I think in sensitive nature areas, we should require dogs to be on lead.
Councillor Dawes.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The problem I have by adding cat on leash is that we did a community consultation on dog on leash areas. So number 1 is actually an incorrect statement, in my opinion. And I remember Campbelltown Council, when they did have their cat law and had cats on leashes, they got a tremendous backlash from certain residents. So I can't agree with adding cat on leashes when we only had a community consultation on dog on leashes. I'm sure we can add cat on leashes once we get some sort of direction from the state government. But remember, we only went to the community on dog on leash areas. So number one is an incorrect statement.
Councillor Wilk.
I agree with Councillor Dawes. We went out on dogs on leash. I also have a neighbour in Eastwood who was actually bitten by a dog off leash in Vic Park when she was walking her dog. Fortunately, she didn't have her two young children with her at the time because they would have been mauled. She actually had to have stitches, and she did report it to Adelaide City Council and the police, and you must do that so that it is on the record. I do agree with the report that came by council where hopefully in the legislation it will be an offence for somebody to leave a situation where a dog has actually bitten or savaged somebody, and it will be an offence under the law to leave without giving your name and contact details at the point of the crime. That will be a very good thing and hopefully will encourage responsible animal ownership and keep your dog on a lead. Even just this morning when taking my dog on lead up the back Night Cart Lane, Matilda Dixon Lane, we were confronted with a taxi coming down the lane at speed, and I just put up my hand and said, stop. This is a lane where young children are walking to school, out of their backyard gate, out through the laneway into school. They could be actually hurt by a dog off lead. And somebody else was coming up the lane, cutting through at speed. So I just stood in the middle and put my hand up and said, you cannot do this through this lane. This is where children walk. So we've got to be careful. And I applaud this, and hopefully there are loads of responsible dog ownership.
Councillor Jones.
Can I ask you a question, please? Yeah. Can we declare something we've got no legal power to do?
Cats.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think as Mr Ken alluded to, you can put a sign up that says anything, in this case, cats on leash, but we don't have any power to enforce that.
Councillor Cornish.
Sorry, and thank you. I suppose I have to do a question, really, don't I now? Wondering whether or not pets on leash is a better term to cover everything, and you leave the declaration. What would the administration say about that? And just putting it in 3.A regarding the signage. Pets on leash. It covers rabbits. Yes.
Councillor Jones, can we turn your mic off, please? Do you want to answer that?
Just give me 2 seconds, Madam Mayor, I'll clarify.
Sorry.
Madam Mayor, if I may, Madam Mayor, just some advice that I would perhaps recommend on the back of Councillor Cornish's thoughts. If point 2 reverted to declares the following areas of local government land as dog on leash areas, and then 3A became signage placed on common entrances to each area requiring pets on leash. I think that would achieve the public notification result you're seeking, and then our legislative process is protected up top.
Councillor Hallett, have you got a question?
Yes,
or are you speaking? Sorry.
I think I'll speak, sort of a question as well, but I'm concerned that we're muddying the water, and that I'd rather see us actually consider cats at a later time and keep this focused on what we've gone to consultation with, as Councillor Dawes mentioned. And I think pets to me, that's too ambiguous. You know, we're talking about dogs, and we need to look at cats, but I think we should do that later. And I think just let's get this sorted, then move on to cats.
Councillor Jones?
Yeah, look, I think I agree with Councillor Hallett. I think cats on lead ran the risk of exposing us to ridicule, and we'd be a figure of fun on national radio and breakfast television. Hey, it was fun, I tell you, but not everyone might enjoy it as much as I did. And I think the problem with pets on lead is people will say, oh, my dog's not a pet, it's a working dog. Yeah. Or an assistance dog. Or it's not a pet, it's a companion animal, you foul animalist abuser. So, look, I think Councillor Hallett's right. Let's do dogs first. Let's tackle cats later. And I think we have to tackle cats on a, I have to say, statewide basis, because, you know, if you ban domestic cats, all you're going to get is wild cats moving in. And that'll be even worse. So, no, but if we go back to the officer's recommendation, I'll vote for that.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Otherwise, Councillor Davey, do you wish to sum up?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for all the light-hearted feedback, which is tinged with, I'm sure, irony and genuine concern. But Councillor Turnbull is right. We don't want all our parks to become dogs on leash only. There is a consistent feedback. When you read the feedback from the community engagement, there was a lot of people raising the issue of that they live in Burnside because they're able to exercise their dogs, exercise themselves, have their dogs run freely and socialise with other dogs. And it is only a tiny minority of people who, unfortunately, don't have any common sense and don't respect other people and the wildlife. As we heard tonight from a resident who took the time to collect a petition up about dogs being able to maintain their exercise and socialisation. And as Councillor Hallett has told us and informed us with all her information, we all know that it's cats which will attack and kill wildlife at far greater rates than dogs in the city of Burnside, plus the thousands of foxes that we've also got, which roam across our streets and parks at night. So we need to make those comments, but I agree with Councillor Hallett that we should probably keep these issues separate, because the cats issue is a huge one and something that I'd like to see us address down the track. Thank you.
Put the motion. All those in favour?
Can I ask, are we voting for the...
What's on the screen?
So was it altered?
No,
So
it's...
we're voting for the administration's...
No, we're voting for what has been altered, so it's 4 new dog on leash areas. Dog on leash is number 2, and at number 3, new dog and pet on leash areas, the signage. Dog and pet on leash areas. That's what it says. That's what you're voting on. Right.
I'd vote against.
Well, those in favour, please raise your hands. Those against? Right, the motion is lost.
So I'll move with just the removal of and pet to that same motion.
Right, Councillor Dawes can do that. Councillor Dawes can do that, please, governance? Just double checking? Yes, okay. All right, so you're moving the removal of, just moving the and pets. In number 3, the rest of it remains the same. Seconder for that, please, Councillor Wilkins. Thank you. Can I just put it to the vote? Those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried. Now, next one is Eastern Health Authority. Councillor Davey, you said you had a question.
Thank you. Yes, I move in accordance with the recommendation that Council adopts the revised EHA Charter as presented and subject to all constituent councils being in agreement to the amended clauses. I just had a query about, this is virtually the same. I know this has been an incredible saga, and I just wanted verification that we're virtually back to where we started with the addition of the salaries of the staff, and are there any other changes? Because there's two members of from each council. And gift registers, sorry. After all this time.
Apart from the other ones.
Councillor Cornish, can I suggest you second this and then you can add your comments when seconding?
So it's virtually status quo with 2 members per council, and all the original memberships have been retained. And so it's back to the drawing board, really, and good operational governance.
All right, now Councillor Cornish.
Happy to second.
If you wish to add anything, you can.
I can concur that there were some minor amendments to the charter to streamline language, but in terms of membership, that will not alter. There was a stalemate, so the status quo remains. But during that period, the two registers, the salary register and the gift register, were requested, and going out for everyone for transparency reasons, which I don't think everyone's got an issue with.
Since there's no one on the screen, are you happy for me, Councillor David, to put the motion? All right, those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried. Councillor Davey, Chief Executive Officer's report. Page 506.
Thank you. I've got a slight amendment to this recommendation, and I move that Council receives and notes the Chief Executive Officer report for May 2024. I don't support that we actually include number 2. I actually think this isn't the appropriate place to discuss the Council's anti-racism statement, with respect. I think it's been a bit contentious, and I think it deserves a report on its own merits, with discussion and perhaps going into committee to work out what we should do in that regard. So I've just moved 1, and I have a couple of questions. Mainly in terms of human resources, will those recruitment be continued with while the budget is in abeyance, and particularly the Youth Development Officer?
Through Madam Mayor, certainly the positions that are contingent upon funding come 1 July will have to be put on hold until I achieve a budget from Council. Through Madam Mayor, I might just get Mr Spearman just to clarify that for us.
Through the Mayor, the 2 that were contingent on funding based on the previous resolution was the Youth Officer, the ARB Officer, just those 2.
Councillor Jones, are you seconding?
Sorry, I want to ask a question.
All right, I need a seconder first. If there's no seconder, Councillor Harvey, all right, thank you. Do you wish to speak now?
Reserve my right. Thank you.
Councillor Davey?
And I just had a question in relation to attachment 3. If you could give us the latest update on the problem with the dead and dying trees in both Kensington Park Oval and Hazelwood Park, please.
Certainly. Madam Mayor, I'll just refer that to Mr Cant.
Through your worship, the information in attachment 3 is quite detailed and is mostly the very latest update. We are starting soil treatment at Kensington Park Reserve, as alluded to in that update, next week.
Councillor Jones?
Can I ask a question, please? The part 2 that was in the officer's recommendation about the anti-racism statement, my understanding was that was as a result of the Zoom survey that Mr Cooper conducted to informally ascertain the views of council. So if we don't have that in the motion, does that mean you'll bring it back next time, or is it we're going to have the workshop?
Through Madam Mayor, if the motion gets up as is on the screen at the minute, we will proceed with booking in a workshop. And at this stage, looking at our schedule, it'll probably be around October-ish, just based on our packed schedule at this point in time. But yes, we'll proceed now with booking in a workshop if this motion is successful.
Councillor Davey?
Thank you, Mayor. Just getting back to the dead and dying trees, and I thank Mr Cant for his update. Paragraph 21 talks about Hazelwood Park with an expert meeting organised. I just wondered when that has been organised and with whom, because I'm getting lots of comments about the dead trees in Hazelwood Park too.
Through your worship, I'm advised that we have now taken the samples and sent that off to those experts for feedback. We're awaiting the response from that. We will provide an update in the next CEO report with the full investigation and the outcomes of that.
Councillor Hall?
I've got a question, please, relating to page 562. And in the table, it says that the Youth Development Officer is currently being recruited. Given that we, at one stage tonight, considered not going ahead with that, how far along are we with the recruitment, please?
Through Madam Mayor, I'll just get a response from Mr Spearman.
Through the Mayor, we have gone through the recruitment process and we have interviewed candidates, so we're at the selection stage.
Councillor Cornish?
A question, if I may, Worship, in relation to item 2. Given it was on the agenda and the objection was that it was included in this motion or this agenda item, could that be moved in other business?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just need a bit of governance advice. Just give me 2 seconds, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your patience, Madam Mayor.
No, I understand it's a tricky situation.
So we are dealing with nuances of legislation. If council was to move the motion directly after it's considered this motion, it's acceptable, but you would be unable to consider it in other business.
Okay, I understand.
So it can run as a subsequent motion to this one.
Good to know. Thank you.
Councillor Hallett.
I'm confused by one of the last questions. To me, if the recommendation point 2 says rescinds council resolution, to me that means we won't be having a workshop and we won't be considering the statement. Is that what? Because what I just heard before was that we will have a workshop. And when we did our anonymous survey, it was very clear that people didn't want to have another workshop.
So, through Madam Mayor, if I can clarify.
Yep.
The motion that's before us is looking to consider just receiving the CEO report and not the rescission motion. So if the motion that's before you gets up, we will continue to deliver the workshop as originally proposed. For the administration to not hold a workshop now requires a rescission motion to be approved by council.
So if people want part B included or number 2 included, they have to vote the first one down. Is that right? No, I'm just wondering, because I think there's some confusion, so I'm just seeking clarification.
So
this gets dealt with first, totally independent from that?
that's correct.
Right.
And then
Is
council,
that clarifying for everybody?
is a,
Because I know there was some other confusion around that side too, yeah.
and if nothing else happens, the administration will continue to book in a workshop. Council is at liberty to consider the second part
With somebody else moving it in a second.
immediately after we've considered this matter, if they choose to.
All right. Okay, all clear now for everybody? So, I have no one else on the screen, so can I go back to Councillor Davis?
I'll sum up, thank you. No, I've got something to say, thanks. Thanks for your input, everybody. The reason I removed the Part B is because I found, and I believe others did too, the survey to be very confusing, and I think that survey on the anti-racism statement needs discussion and further development. It isn't clear what council's intent is and what council's views are, and so I think we do need another workshop. So that's why I removed it from this. So that was all my reasoning was. So hopefully you'll support this. Thanks.
All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay. So no one's going to move the...
Oh, yeah.
So therefore we will be doing a...
Sorry.
Good, okay. Councillor Jones, sorry?
Can I move the part 2, please,
Yes, you can.
as a separate motion?
So you're running the second one as it rescinds the motion as it is?
Yes. Look, I think we should have some clarity here. The benefit of look, at the moment we've had a straw poll. The benefit of running this motion is Councillor Davey got to the buzzer first and took it out, but in theory next time somebody could put a motion on notice of a rescission motion to have the workshop based on the poll. So what we should have is a decision here tonight on the rescission motion, and the good news is if you vote down a rescission motion, that's it, it's gone for 12 months. So we will have absolute certainty that we will be having a workshop. As opposed to if we don't have the motion and don't vote it down, someone can put the motion up again at the next meeting when different councillors might be in attendance at the meeting. So if you want a workshop, my clear advice to you is to vote against this motion. So whilst I'm proposing the motion, I will be voting against it, and I hope you will too.
Councillor Hallett?
I've got a question, please.
Yeah, I need a seconder first.
I'll second the motion.
Councillor, all right, you're seconding the motion, Councillor Hallett, okay. Now you can speak then, or you've got a question. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Cornish.
Yeah. I'll be voting against this motion. I did vote to not have a workshop in the survey. I know it was confidential, but I'm happy to share that. I think the survey certainly was on the back of some heightened emotions from a workshop that everyone had. And I think everyone around that table, given the results of that survey, did not want to go down that path and have that conversation again. The administration has followed up on the results of that survey and tried to action what we have requested. And I thank the administration for doing that. It's a governance thing that they've done here to tidy things up. However, the administration, I think they do know how fickle we are with our decisions. And we say one thing one week and we change our minds the next week. Like I am right now, but I am more than happy to have this workshop. I probably voted for other people's emotions rather than mine, knowing that they were heightened at that workshop. So I'm more than happy to have this workshop. I've done a lot of research for it as well, so I really want to share that information with you all. So more than happy to have the workshop, so I will be voting this rescission motion down.
Councillor Dawes. Oh, no, sorry. Councillor Hallett's first.
Thank you, Mayor. If I thought that we were going to actually get a different result, I would agree with you, Councillor Cornish, but I just think we'll be back in exactly the same position, and we'll have a split vote, and the Mayor will have to have a casting vote. So I just think let's put it to bed. That's what I think. And when we had the workshops, I didn't understand, I still don't understand what people are objecting to about it. I've heard things like it's too strong, it's too aggressive, and I just can't see what word in that statement fits that description. So to me it gets down to, do you want an anti-racism statement or you don't? If you don't, say that. If you do, say that. Because this going around saying, oh, if we change this, we change that, we're not facing the elephant in the room. Either say, yes, we support an anti-racism statement, or no, we don't. Get it over and done with. And I think the way it's worded at the moment, it's putting it to bed. It's saying, we've got it, leave it alone. And if you then say, okay, we go back to the drawing board, the only thing that I just can't see why you'd want to do that, other than your agenda is actually that you don't want an anti-racism statement.
Councillor Dodd.
Thank you, Mayor, and I do agree with Councillor Cornish. There was emotion in that workshop. There is emotion tonight. It means we care. That's what it means. We do care. We might not agree in everything, but we do care. See, I don't like the term anti-racism statement. I think I said to Councillor Wilkins today, why do we call it the enhancing harmony statement? Because we want to make it a positive statement. I'm not trying to throw things around here. I just felt that anti-racism statement tells me that something's wrong in Burnside, because no one else has got it. So we must have a problem with racism, and I don't think that's correct. The other point I like to make is that I'm looking for multicultural input into it as well. And of course, there are differences between, whether that word should be in and that in this word, but let's do it in a workshop. There will probably be still some emotion there, but I took that to mean we do care and we want to get it right. So With Councillor Hallett, we haven't quite got it right, but we're on the way to getting it right.
Councillor Davey, you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor. No, I have a comment.
Oh, comment.
I won't be supporting this. I endorse everything that Councillor Dawes has said. Well, I don't want an anti-racism statement. I don't think it's necessary. I want something positive. I want a multicultural statement. We're a multicultural community. We're full of Anglos, Irish, Italians, Greeks, Chinese and Indian and everything else Australians. And I think we need a multicultural statement that welcomes and positively talks about all of that and get rid of the racism stuff. So that's what I'll be contributing to the workshop.
Councillor Jennings?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I like what Councillor Cornish and Councillor Dawes just said. Sometimes life does get uncomfortable, especially when we've got a room full of, as Councillor Davey put it, Anglos around a table. It's I think it feels like it's an elephant in the room, and I think we need to get to the bottom of it as a council. So I'll be supporting this. Thank you.
Councillor Cornish?
A question, obviously, through you, Your Worship. Can I ask the administration, this statement, it's not a community statement for the community that we're imposing on the community. This statement, it's a corporate one that you hand out to your staff about, and in, induction, manuals. It's not an actual, we're imposing this anti-racism statement on the entire community of Burnside. It's a corporate statement. Is that correct?
Through Madam Mayor, it's certainly intended to be a statement of how we would operate as an organisation. Thank you.
Councillor Jones?
Question. If it was an internal statement, why was it put out all over social media?
Can I just say there's lots of things that are put out by our staff on social media that are information giving about how we operate. Anyone else who wishes to speak? Otherwise I shall go back to the mover of the motion. Councillor Jones, do you wish to speak again?
Look, whilst as a Celt I'm insulted to be called an Anglo, but let's have this workshop. The way to guarantee we have this workshop is to vote this motion down. So even though I proposed it, please vote against it.
Right, all those in favour? Those against? Is everybody else? Right, the motion is lost. Division's been called. Councillor Hallett was the only one who voted for it. So we've got Councillor Hallett for. Are those against? Councillor Jones, Jennings, Wilkins, Davey, Cornish, Harvey, Turnbull and Dawes. Right, now, looking, what's the time? 10:15. We've just got the motion on notice.
That's correct.
Yes, we have 15 minutes. If we don't, can I just suggest that we make, since we're having a break right now, like a break between, that we move a motion that if this goes beyond 10:25, we go on for another 10 minutes.
I move that way.
All right, and then we don't have, I don't have to stop you at 25 past, all right, and then have to go do this again. So it's better to have a flow of the discussion rather than interruption. Okay. So, Councillor.
Can I vote against? Speak against?
Well, can we first? Oh, so you want to speak against my suggestion? It's not even a motion. It's just a suggestion.
We need to have a motion.
So we had a
to extend
motion.
time.
Okay, we had a mover. Did we have a seconder?
Yeah, me.
Yes, you had a seconder. Do you want to speak against it, Councillor Jones?
Look, colleagues, I'm sorry. we debated this fully last time, and it took a long time. And
Yeah, I'm only talking about the break now, at the moment.
We're talking about having
a break.
I'm only
Well, I
talking
want
about...
the meeting to end at 10:30. Is the meeting going to end at 10:30?
Well, it might not. It
Well,
depends
there
on...
we are. Well, we need an extension to go beyond 10:30,
What
which
I'm
I don't
suggesting...
support.
Okay, right, so you're speaking against an extension, a potential extension of time. Go for it then.
I do not believe, which is why I voted, we used to go on to 11:30, meetings should end at 10:30, and they can be extended to 11 if there's something of exceptional importance that needs to be decided tonight. I'm sorry, I do not believe that this is of exceptional importance that it needs to be decided tonight. If we have decisions late at night, they're rushed, people are tired, people are frustrated after being at council for 3.5 hours. I don't think we make good decisions. So I, as a general rule, vote against extensions, and I see nothing in this motion that would make me want to change my general rule to extend beyond 10:30, which, to be honest, is a sensible time when people should be in bed. So I hope you will vote against an extension.
Does anyone else wish to speak on an potential extension of time? Otherwise, I shall put this to the vote. Do you agree to have an extension of time of up to 10 minutes if it's necessary? Right, those against? Right, so we have said a division's been called. So there is one, that we have Councillor Cornish, Harvey, Turnbull, Dawes, Hallett, Jennings, Wilkins and Davey, and against Councillor Jones. Now, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. The Mayor and councillors have separate LGA policies because their roles are different. As per the LGA, Section 58 relates to the Mayor and Section 59 to councillors in a behavioural policy. We have worked on a council member behavioural support policy for well over a year now. To date, the facilitated workshops have cost ratepayers over $11,000. Some councillors wanted more workshops to discuss further at a cost of up to another $5,000. This is not necessary when we are trying to cut spending. It is important to note there is a provision for a council member support behavioural policy within the existing council member behavioural management policy. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel, but add to this policy, put our own stamp on it. The inclusion of council members at 11.2 has been added to this policy in the motion as requested at the last meeting by councillors. The words respect, listen, professional and kind kept coming up in the responses put forward in writing by most councillors present here. We have had 3 workshops and 2 email opportunities to have our say. I have printed out everyone's response here, which Matt Spearman emailed through to us. Lots of support, words, ticks, sentences, all wanting change, all supporting kindness, respect, professionalism. Let's not waste any more of our taxpayers' money, and I hope you support this motion. Thank you.
I seek a seconder. Councillor Turnbull.
Yes, I'll second that, Mayor, thank you. I'll just say a little bit. Separating number 1 and 2 makes sense to me. I don't buy the rhetoric from one of the workshops that we're all leaders and we should all be lumped together. The presiding member has a different role and this needs to be recognised. The role of the presiding member is to lead the council, to chair council meetings, to give speeches and open events are some examples which council members don't do. We don't actually do it, apart from chairing the occasional council meeting. We've had 3 workshops on this council member behavioural support policy, spent $11,275 and used 100 of poster notes. Enough. Please vote for this small change on this policy.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Jones.
Colleagues, this behavioural support policy remains a terribly bad idea. You will be held accountable to this, and people can make complaints against you, which could lead to you being thrown off council. Let's not beat around the bush. This can be weaponised. Just imagine your worst enemy using this policy against you, saying, Councillor X, you were not kind to me. And I'll say, we were having a fraught debate about council rates, for example, where vigorous views were expressed, as vigorous debate is expressly permitted by the Local Government Act, and someone can complain about you that can go all the way to SACAT saying, you were not kind to me. Are we here to make decisions for the City of Burnside, which has a turnover of $60 million, $950 million assets, 180 staff, or are we here to be kind? Because, look, I'm sorry, it's not a requirement of democratic government that we all be kind to each other or be compassionate to each other. We're here to represent the community and take tough decisions if necessary, and to have vigorous debate. And sometimes people will say things I don't agree with, and I might roll my eyes. Are you going to? But yet somebody could say, he didn't. What is it? He didn't act in a respectful way with his body language. Off to court and council jail for you. I mean, are we serious that we want to have this? And look, yes, we spent $11,000 on it. Look, I voted against ever having it in the first place. And I think the product of our $11,000 of workshops was the whole thing's a bad idea, which is why Councillor Cornish proposed his motion that we all supported to effectively bury it. And that's where it should be left, buried, never to see the light of day again, and I hope you'll vote against it.
Councillor Dawes.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I do thank Councillor Harvey here for separating number one, because I was always concerned that there was no mention about council members contributing professionally and respectfully. And I think in answer to Councillor Jones, I think we also need to be respectful in our language, and I don't think that happened tonight. So that's why we've got this here. The other point I'd like to make is the addition of attendance, which I don't know if you mentioned that, Councillor Harvey, but I think that's also an important addition to these list of behaviours. But look, I do understand, Councillor Jones, you know, we can't always be kind and we can be assertive and all these other sort of things, but I think the way we approach each other in the chamber is very important. You know, I can say, look, I strongly disagree with you, Councillor Jones, on the best of terms. However, I think you are wrong. Now, everybody would say that is said with respect. But when you start accusing people of lacking financial expertise and you should not be on council, etc., then immediately the hairs on the back of the neck go up. So you have to be careful what you say, and I think what these behaviours do show us is a way forward. And I thought generally today, even though it was a very difficult debate for us in the budget, we didn't do too badly. We didn't agree on anything, but we didn't do too badly. But we will agree at our special council meeting, CEO, I'm sure. So again, thank you, Councillor Harvey, for now putting it into a form that I'm happy to support.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. I thank Councillor Harvey for bringing this back. I thank everybody for all the work and contributions they've made. I think it's, as Councillor Dawes has highlighted, separating those sections makes it much clearer about our responsibilities. And mark my words, they are statutory responsibilities which already exist, and this is just providing us with clarification. I don't believe this is providing us with more grounds for codes of conduct or complaints. I think it will actually lessen them. And I also agree with the inclusion of that we're businesslike in our attendance at, preparation for and in our conduct during meetings. So I think it outlines the Mayor's responsibilities and statutory role, ours as council members, and I think it's very clear and straightforward, so I hope you'll support this.
Councillor Hallett?
Thank you. I won't be supporting the motion. We previously voted this down, and then the members who feel disgruntled that that vote was lost haven't accepted it and have just brought it back again. And I agree with Councillor Cornish that, I think it was Councillor Cornish, or anyway, at some stage Councillor Cornish has expressed that it complicates and makes having to arbitrate with a complaint when you've got something that is so loosely worded. So you're going to be looking at, when a complaint is received, you're going to have to look at this policy, the existing one, and the Local Government Act. And I think, to me, this is something that you might say, this is how we want to act, but don't put it as a policy. Have it as something that it's a guide for what we'll do, but don't put it as a policy. We're just making a rod for our own back. And I don't think it's going to deliver what some people are looking for in any case. I just think that it's too unobjective to be able to assist in making a decision about a complaint of poor behaviour. So I won't be supporting the motion. Oh, and I also want to make a comment about the money that we've spent, $11,000 getting to this point. To me, if we get it right, the money is well spent. The fact that we don't go ahead with it, or we don't go ahead with it as a policy, is still money well spent to arrive at that decision. Thank you.
If there's no one else who wishes to speak, I'll go back to Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for your input. You all actually wrote down that you want respect, you want profession, maybe apart from Councillor Jones, but Councillor Hallett, you wrote on this, Councillor Cornish, you wrote on this, and now you're not supporting what has been put right in front of you. I'm not making this up. You all wrote all of this down. So it's not something that's been made up on the hop. And my goodness, a bit of kindness does go a long way. And obviously there are different interpretations as to what that word actually means around the chamber. Let's be respectful. This motion has been helped along with an administration that have worked very, very hard to get facilitators to us that you attended to. You didn't have to. You didn't have to have support this policy. You didn't even need to turn up to the workshop. So why did you? You put in writing what you wanted added into this policy. Let's not waste ratepayers' money, because if this is not supported, that is exactly what will happen. Unbelievable. I'm not making up these words. These words have been put forward by every council member in this room, bar probably Councillor Jones. I hope you support this motion. We have spent a lot of money, ratepayers' money, on getting this to where we are now. Thank you.
I have to just say I have to defend Councillor Jones, because I was in a group where he contributed to that particular, to the words that were submitted. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4. Hang on, I need to do a recount. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 1. Sorry, it's 1. Yeah, I just wasn't sure if my counting was right at this time. Right, so it was called. It was 1. Division's just been called. So those in favour, please raise your hands again. Councillor Harvey, Turnbull, and Dawes. We'll Wilkins and Davey. Those against, Jennings, Jones, Hallett, Cornish. That's it, right. Motion was 1. Okay, I think that is all.